everyone. Welcome to the Cārvāka podcast. This is your host Kushalmehra. All right, time to review another book. And today we're going to be discussing the book Snakes in the Ganga. And I have with me Rajiv Malhotra ji. Sir, namaste.
नमस्ते.
कैसे हो? पहले तो आप बताओ आपकी तबीयत कैसी है?
तबीयत तो फर्स्ट क्लास है. Good to see you after what? How many years?
7 साल बाद मिल रहे हैं हम लोग.
बॉम्बे में हम मिलते थे हर साल.
हर साल मिलते थे.
Huh?
Yes.
It was very interesting.
Yeah.
Those were the days before you started the podcast.
Yes. So
what year was that?
For the first time we met was in 2010 जब Being Different launch हुई थी. It was me, Ganesh ji. We were there and
You were. I must tell people, he is largely responsible for the success of the book in Mumbai because you were manning the book stall, and telling people खरीदो, एक क्यों खरीद रहे हो, 5 खरीदो. वहाँ भी दो. अच्छा ये बुक खरीदनी, उनकी एक पहले की बुक थी वो भी खरीदो. And my God, I was so impressed, and we have a lot of footage of that. You were really coming out as a tough champion of our cause in those days.
To be very honest, I've always said this, even when I meet people offline, Being Different rewired my brain.
Yes.
And I use this word rewired very specifically because there was a way I used to think. So my journey was being a very angry atheist of the Dawkinian mold. And then finding, okay, I don't feel this is my kind of disbelief. Even disbelief could be. And then I came across your book. And I was like, okay, now I understand why I'm not like them. Even my disbelief is Indian.
Yes.
It's not Western.
Yes.
It's not Abrahamic in that sense. And in that sense, to use a very Abrahamic word, I have been the biggest evangelist of that book.
No, you were a very big evangelist of the book Being Different.
Yeah.
And I must say that. And I must also say that I owe you, I could have been dead. There was an event, I don't know if you remember or not, I got food poisoning.
Oh yeah.
You remember that?
Ha.
So Kushal, I mean, these guys abandoned me. India में कई लोग, they invite you as a guest, आपके लिए ये करेंगे वो करेंगे, and then nobody cares, you know. So somebody brought me some street food, and that was no good for me. I remember the gentleman, and
नाम नहीं
लेंगे, and I fell ill. I was so ill, and I had nowhere to go, and I calling all these people who were hosting me, and they were all saying, हाँ ठीक हो जाएगा, आप gargles कर लो, आप ये कर लो. When I called him, he said, no, you're living in a bad location. You should live in a proper place.
Yeah, I remember Ganesh and
I'll pick you up right now. I put you in a proper place. I've got a doctor arranged. And so you picked me up at a time when I was almost like I couldn't hardly walk around. I was so ill because of that. And you took me with a lot of love, care, concern, and put me in a proper hotel and got me a doctor who came. And that got me going back again. I felt very vulnerable, you know, in a city. But I'm not a native of Mumbai. I don't know my way around, what to do if you fall in. So that was I remember these things.
Yeah. To use your word, you use the word Kurukshetra, right? So how has the Kurukshetra changed since Breaking India 1 to Breaking India 2? That would be my first question.
So एक तो बात ये है, कुरुक्षेत्र में technology नहीं आ गई है. This artificial intelligence, big data, social media is a part of the Kurukshetra, which wasn't the case. New players have come, नए खिलाड़ी आ गए, new armies have come. So the kind of people I'm talking about, you know, at that time when Breaking India first one came out, I had left Harvard as the only Indian sponsoring chairs at Harvard. 2 chairs I sponsored, visiting, you know, we have all the correspondence, all of that. For 3 to 5 years in a row, we sponsored the Indology conference at Harvard. Mm-hmm. We sponsored it, Infinity Foundation. But I was a hard-nosed guy wanting to know okay, क्या कर रहे हो with this money and with our name, and didn't like what they were doing. So I would argue with them. And they would say, we love Infinity Foundation's funding, but we don't like Rajiv's interference. They would say all that. Huh? And I'd say, well, the two come together. I'm not a lazy guy writing a check. I'm actually more mind than money. Okay? Money is just to sort of get in the door, but really it's my brains coming in and I'm trying to argue with you. They couldn't argue. Aajkal cancel culture ka chal gaya na. I was cancelled right then. As the only donor of India in the India studies and Hinduism studies, I was given a lot of importance, but because I was always after them saying कि जो India की appropriation हो रही है in Western society, especially Harvard, वो तो आप कभी include नहीं करते, और जो बदनामी करनी है, all the bad mouthing you want to do, you focusing on that, and there's so many flaws and errors. They were promoting the Aryan invasion theory. They were one of the first to do that, one of the most important ones to do that. Talking about Munda tribes as, you know, the Breaking India kind of thing. So really the Breaking India thesis developed as a result of my involvement in Harvard and other places like that, where I found that this thing was going on a very war scale and nobody in India knew about it. So that was a time when there was no Mahindra, no Piramal, no Lakshmi Mittal at Harvard. They had not yet arrived. Okay, I mean, they were flirting with little bit of funding here and there, but I had arrived, taken control of the word control is not used good, but let's say I had dominated the Indian sponsoring of these kind of projects at Harvard and found out what's wrong with it and decided to get out, withdrew. So there was a vacuum at that time. Mm-hmm. So what is different in Breaking India 2.0 is in the Kurukshetra, new players have come to sponsor Harvard. These industrialists, these big billionaires have come to sponsor Harvard. So that's a new game. Now when you are arguing against somebody, he'll say, but I work at the Mittal Institute of South Asia Studies. Everybody in India thinks, theek hoga bhi. Now it says Lakshmi Mittal and Family South Asia Institute, must be okay. Somebody says, I'm the director at Mahindra Humanities Center. Homi Bhabha, this postmodernist guy. So the Indian naming, giving their credibility from their family name and their money to this kind of work at Harvard is a new game. So it wasn't there in Breaking India 1.0. So the technology is different, the players are different. And I would say that the other thing that's different is, in the first Breaking India, they were targeting the poor people in the villages who could convert karo. Bottom-up society. They were not targeting the corporate elites. They were not targeting the sons and daughters of people, putting them in Ashoka University or Kriya University, elite places. They were not targeting कि उन लोगों को Harvard ले आओ and brainwash them and send them back. They were not targeting the planning commission. They were not. But now, because Harvard has the credibility among the elite, Harvard is not known in the villages. Harvard would be the wrong starting place, a brand name, if you want to target some poor villages, because he doesn't know anything about it. Harvard ka naam aata hai when you want to target the elites of India, because everybody wants to be in Harvard or associated with them. So the entry of Harvard as the central player in Breaking India 2.0 means that the target is now the top of the elite pyramid of India. So that's something new.
So if I was to use a Pareto principle analogy here, the Pareto principle says 20% of the people always influence the lives of 80% of the people, that famous 20-80 rule.
In the case of India, maybe 2%.
Yeah. So Breaking India 2.0, if I was to take off from there, do you think is far more dangerous?
Yes.
Because these are your policymakers, these are your basically the people who are going to design the destiny of Bharat then?
And they control the machinery. They control the government machinery. इतनी बड़ी IS में machinery है, इतनी बड़ी media machinery है. So now they are not going through NGOs. So they are now there is this Omidiyar network.
Yeah.
Omidiyar network is going through the route of not FCRA because there is a red flag, you can be caught. They're going through the route of FDI. So they're saying we're making investments in India's technology. So they go to Bangalore and places like that, getting group of 5, 10, 50 people, young, bright fellows, and investing in their artificial intelligence, data sciences and all that. But the kind of application they're building is to take over village databases, come up with behavior analysis of how the villagers can be manipulated, how they be brainwashed, and coming up with ideas like what they are calling social engineering, youth empowerment. These are very nice words you have to be looking out for. When they say social engineering, youth empowerment, empowering the underclass, the underdog, these are very tricky words because what they are doing is breaking India. What they are doing is going to those that they feel are disenfranchised or those who can be convinced that they're disenfranchised and giving them a new kind of a sense of empowerment, calling them the oppressed and making themselves the liberators using technology. So in this, I think this chapter 22 or something like that is the last chapter before the conclusion is on Omidiyar network. And that's just one example of several such networks I've uncovered. And so Harvard is doing this as an academic institution. Lot of entry into India's databases for pharmaceuticals, for public health, villages, village databases, basically figuring out where are the vulnerabilities in India. And then rather than going bottom up like the church, they're going top down making policy. Harvard is shaping such a large number of Indian policies. People need to know that. Harvard operates through these big five, these consulting companies.
Yeah.
The McKinseys of the world. Harvard operates through the World Economic Forum. World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, who's the founder and the head of it, was a student of Henry Kissinger at Harvard Kennedy School. So most people don't know this. So he and Kissinger go way back. And so their idea of kind of making sure that Western civilization stays on top was that another organization needs to be built which is non-academic, non-government, non-corporate, not answerable to anybody. And that's the World Economic Forum. Is not answerable to anybody.
Yeah.
And who they are, what they do, where the money comes from and all that is completely opaque. No need for transparency. They come up with policies along with Harvard. Harvard Kennedy School and World Economic Forum work together. So they've come up with so many kinds of policies, whether it is global warming, whether it is ESG, social justice, all of that. And they then market it all over the world. And the brand name is so big of World Economic Forum, to be invited there, to be felicited there. Everybody in India want to be show off that I've been there. So these two brand names are the biggest there are for being the movers and shakers of the world. And anybody would like to be on that list. So they've created this, used this branding to influence the top of the pyramid, whereas Breaking India 1.0 was not targeting the top, it was bottom.
Yeah.
ये हमारे लोगों में अभी समझ नहीं है. Most of the podcasts and people on these influencers in YouTube and all that are still taking the old Breaking India 1.0 thesis, उसको ही फ्लॉग करी जा रही है कि वहाँ पर एक लड़ाई हुई, वो किसी चर्च के साथ लड़ाई हुई, वहाँ पर उसको जला दिया, वहाँ पर वो कर दिया. That is at the grassroots going on, but none of them have, until these books come out, which gives them a framework, really figured out that now the new invasion, this new Breaking India 2.0, is targeting Niti Aayog. So you will see Harvard guys in the Niti Aayog as advisors. You will see that their policy that they've come out with on data protection. A lot of it is quoting the kind of data protection Google has. Now it's very funny. If you want protection from those guys, unka jo likha hua usi ko quote kar rahe ho. And a lot of the Indian intelligence machinery coming up with protection of against foreign influences quotes McKinsey, Deloitte, PricewaterhouseCoopers, these sort of people. And they're operating out of London, they're operating out of the New York offices. So what has happened is the US think tanks, it's no longer just church think tanks like they were in the Breaking India 1.0. Now we're talking about the big 4 to 5 consulting companies of the West, along with World Economic Forum, along with the Harvard established think tanks, and through people like Brookings, Carnegie, and the Harvard influences in the US Congress, the Harvard influences in the US Senate. A lot of the new bills and policies that you see coming out on India, you'll find the footprints of Harvard. Some fingerprint, some guy in Harvard started all this idea. And then some Muslim congresswoman goes to Pakistan and Kashmir and starts shouting Islamophobia and all that. But the origin of these ideas have come from somewhere else. Because these congressmen and congresswomen are not, at the end of the day, that well educated. They're politicians. They're running elections. Abhi election aane wala hai. So they rely on think tanks to do the thinking for them.
True. And this is what fascinates me. The only commonality between the two, Breaking India 1.0 and 2.0, from what I could, because I've read both the books, Breaking India and Snakes in the Ganga, was the epistemic framework. And unfortunately, again in India, I don't know why we are the way we are. Nobody wants to understand epistemology. Like, why do people behave the way they do? I was so happy that you at least spent 300 pages in this book or 400 pages in this book where you explained the epistemology of these people. Right. Like, why do they behave the way they do?
What is their logic?
Yeah, what is their logic?
That is the Purva Paksha they're supposed to.
Yeah, and how do they look at the world? What is the prism with which they understand things, they break things down? So maybe we can dwell on that, because unfortunately, हो रहा क्या है ना सर, कि हाँ ठीक है ये कुछ कर रहे हैं, अरे मगर वो क्यों कर रहे हैं? अभी एपिस्टेमोलॉजी तो हर एक की होती है, इंडियंस की भी एक एपिस्टेमोलॉजी होती है, हमारा भी प्रमाणा सिस्टम है. बट द पॉइंट इज, सो लेट्स टेक, सो आप सेकेंड हाफ ऑफ द बुक में यू टॉक अबाउट स्पेसिफिक इंडियन बिलियनर्स. तो मुझे, और फर्स्ट हाफ में आप एक थियोरेटिकल फ्रेमवर्क एक्सप्लेन कर रहे हो. You know what I find fascinating, and I want to request you to break this maybe question down in two phases. पहले आप epistemology समझाइए उनकी, and then tell me कि is the epistemology the reason why our billionaires, and this is my experience, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, when I see a George Soros or any billionaire in the United States or in the West in general, they have a universalist vision. I'm not even saying they come from a place of malice or anything. I don't know them personally. मुझे कैसे मालूम वो कहाँ से आ रहे हैं? But they seem to have a very universalist vision. Like they want to shape the world in their own way.
There is an ideology driving them.
Yes, right?
Yeah.
If I have understood.
Yes.
But our billionaires, they have no universalist vision.
They are the fellow who just instantly became very rich and wants to throw his money to become important.
Yes.
Whether he understands it or not. I don't want to insult Anand Mahindraji. You are a good man and you have done a lot of good work. I have a lot of respect for you. But I don't think he understands postmodernism. And yet the Mahindra Humanities Center is run by one of the world's biggest, most famous postmodernists of Indian origin. And he's totally anti-India and against our government and against all that. Because he's postmodern, always deconstructing any power structure, anything that, any structure, any history, any sense of identity. So he's doing all that. And I think Mahindra, so I'm asking the second question first. Why is the billionaires doing it? My theory is that billionaires they are just mixed up fellows. And they just want a seat at the table next to the Guras. They just want that we are also like the white people at the seat at the table. I'll rub shoulders with Bill Gates. I'll rub shoulders with Warren Buffett, all the other billionaires who are in these committees and these big organizations. I'll be seen as the jet set among them, and so I've made it big. Being at the top of the pyramid in India was not enough. Now I can be at the top of the world. I can be certainly at par with them. So I'm buying my way as a kind of honorary bite. It's one idea, one possibility. Another possibility, I'm just giving you possibilities. Because I don't know, as you said, I don't know what's the
we've not spent time.
We don't know their motive. Another possibility is that they'll get their son, daughter, and all that to Harvard, because that's a piece of cake now. You write a check and wo aage andar. But another one could be hush money. This is a very serious allegation, but I'm not saying that this is true. It's a possibility. The allegation, the possibility is that these leftists will come after you, after the capitalists, for exploiting, and you are oppressor. And in your factory you don't have this justice and that justice. So one way you hire the consultants, he says, "Acha, unhi logon ko grant de do. Unhi logon ko hire kar lo." It's like in Bombay, you are from Bombay, you hire the gundas and aapki factory.
ये तो literally मेरी factory का किस्सा ही सुन रहा हूँ मैं.
So you hire the gundas और आपकी factory चलती जाएगी.
Yeah.
But you hire it in a nice dignified way that आपका जो project हम करवा रहे हैं, जो भी है वो आपकी community में it will be good for you and all that. So funding Harvard to bring social justice to India is not a very strange thing for a billionaire to do. I mean, why would you fund Harvard to bring social justice to India? This is sort of strange. And why would Harvard then hire all these Indians who are in very kind of breaking India type Indians who are on the world stage, giving testimony to the US Congress, always writing these articles in the US media against India. Harvard brings all these people in, gives them a space, gives them legitimacy, gives them clout. Then they all have this tapak that I spoke at Harvard Kennedy School, or I spoke at the Lakshmi Mittal, South Asia Institute, or I was invited to give a talk at the, Mahindra or Piramal or one of those kind of their chairs invited me, and you have selfies, you're being interviewed by those kind of people. So Harvard has created a very loyal group of Indians who are well educated, well spoken, articulate people coming from good families, in good positions all over the society. Harvard has taken these kind of people, made them loyal to the Harvard ideology. And the Indian billionaires feel very proud to fund all this because they feel that this is cool. So I do not know if these people really understand the ideology behind all this. I don't know if any of them understand critical race theory or Marxism or critical caste theory or what is meant by intersectionality. I don't think they necessarily understand that. I mean, if somebody is the best brains for making cars, making automobiles, somebody is very brilliant in steel industry, or somebody is in pharmaceuticals, their training and their background is not in these fields. And you would think that if they want to fund the world best place in R&D, they would fund the automobile, they would fund something in metallurgy, they would fund something in engine design or something useful to them. Not only would such funding be useful to them because they are in that industry, but it would also be something they have the capability to evaluate. If Mahindra were to fund something relevant to his area of expertise, he has enough people who would go and check it out. Are they right? Are they good? How is the quality? If Lakshmi Mittal would fund something in his field, or Piramal, I'm just giving these three as many examples, out of many examples. At least you would say that they are funding research which is good for them and which they can evaluate. But funding research in postmodernism and all this social justice, I don't know how it's helping them. It's certainly not helping the country. And I don't know if they have the ability to even evaluate it. So we are doing, in a sense, a due diligence for them. I feel I'm doing them a favor. I feel that I'm telling them that in your name and with your money, this is what's being done. Whether it is good or bad, you can decide. If you agree with it, you agree with it. If you're willing to come out and say, I agree with all this, I agree with the postmodernist deconstruction of India, I agree with it, well, that's your point of view. You're entitled to it. But if you are not even agreeing with it and you're confused about it and you want to disown it, then you should appreciate that we have brought it to your attention.
Yeah, this is fascinating. ये तो almost जिसको बोलते हैं ना फिरौती का पैसा है. This is like a फिरौती racket, and this is literally what used to happen in MSME businesses. अभी थोड़ा polished हो गया है तो अभी कम हो गया है. मगर आप आज भी, let's say if you drive 200 kilometers, 300 kilometers away from मुंबई में भी कुछ पॉकेट्स में है, तो कैसा होगा कि वहाँ का लोकल गुंडा होगा, वो आपके फैक्ट्री के गेड़े मारेगा, बोलेगा मेरा एक आदमी रख. आप लोग यार अभी नहीं रख सकता, तेरा आदमी उतना नहीं है. इट शुड बी बेस्ड ऑन मतलब कि लायकात है कि नहीं. अच्छा नहीं, आदमी नहीं रखने का है तो क्या करने का है फिर? मैं तेरे को चलाने तो दूंगा नहीं फैक्ट्री, तो फिर क्या करना? अच्छा ठीक है, तू महीने का बांध ले. ये लिटरल है. तो ये बेसिकली इट इज ऑल, इफ आई एम करेक्ट, इट इज ऑल एसोसिएटेड विद योर न्यूसेंस वैल्यू. सो फर्स्ट द सोशल साइंस डिपार्टमेंट्स in different universities of prestige create their own nuisance value. After nuisance value, they have become the new age firoti walas. Then they go around in these companies in their HR departments with their danda, which is diversity, equity, inclusion का डंडा लेके जाते हैं लोग. नहीं, पुराने गुंडे का मतलब क्या था? उसके पास तो चाकू और बंदूक होती थी.
These guys are booted, suited,
yeah,
polished guys.
Polished, और डंडा इनका है diversity, equity, inclusion. ये डंडा लेके जा रहे हैं और बोलते तुझे मारू ये डंडे से. नहीं मुझे मत मार भाई, तेरी बहुत न्यूसेंस वैल्यू है, ये ले पैसा इसको. दिस इज लिटरली मतलब दिस इज हश मनी, नथिंग एल्स.
You know, the diversity, equity, and inclusion is a multi-billion-dollar industry in the world. As a consulting industry and funding industry and workshops. Some of these guys have quoted giving workshops $75,000 an hour.
Oh my
per hour.
goodness.
This is their workshop. They go to Microsoft and they say, we're going to teach you caste sensitivity. Now Microsoft says, well, we don't know anything, but you have a lot of caste problem here. You don't know. We have Brahmins here. You should have a census on how many Brahmins, how many this, how many that, how many Muslims. So they're bringing identity conflict into an organization that has no such thing. Microsoft says we are a meritocracy. No, but merit is a code name is a cover up for caste abuse and racism and all that.
Yeah.
So this new ideology is something that Silicon Valley don't know what to deal with because they don't have any such sense of it. Now that it is politically incorrect, if you have a panga with these guys, the people that you're talking with, the kind of people you're talking about, if you have a panga with these guys, they're going to act tough because then they know they have a big worldwide network. They badami karwa sakte hain. They can create scandals. They can really go after you in terms of, okay, you are hating LGBTQ, or you're hating women, or you're hating Dalits, and they can make a case. And they made a case in Cisco. They filed a lawsuit against Cisco that one Dalit said that I was oppressed and all that because all these guys were Brahmins. So that became a huge thing. And they used that to go to all the other Silicon Valley companies saying, aapke saath bhi ho sakta hai, but you have to do caste sensitivity workshops. So now I'm getting calls from Microsoft people, Indians. I'm getting calls from Facebook. I'm getting calls from Google. I'm speaking there next week, 2 weeks from now. They are basically calling and saying, kya kare? HR department says all Indians have to sit here and listen because they're giving you caste sensitivity. Now you're an Indian, you work very hard, you work your ass off, you're not some caste people, and you're a technocrat, and you got a job in Microsoft, and based on merit, you've climbed up to a high level, and now you're being told that, you may be a casteist, and you better have the sensitivity of casteism. And they were just like whites were told that you have to be very sensitive to black issues and all that racism. So that was a different matter because that was definitely there in the United States and they needed to fix it. But now this allegation of casteism, and caste is considered like racism, is so serious that Microsoft people will say, okay, ठीक है, we pay him 75,000 an hour. What will it cost? It will cost us $500,000, ठीक है, we pay him and get rid of him. So now what happens is all the Indians write to me, they're saying we are sitting there and there are meetings going on, and in every meeting we are very embarrassed because what they're talking about, this history of caste in India from the earlier years onward, it's so insulting. We're sitting there with our white colleagues and they're looking at us, tum log aise ho, because we are being insulted with what is being said. But the HR department quietly tells us, don't argue. Just sit there quietly and listen. Do not answer back. And the one or two courageous people who raise their hand and say this is not true and all that, they are silenced and it looks very bad on their record. He is in denial. He must be a white supremacist or a racist or a Brahmanical fellow because he is in denial. He is not willing to admit. So the hero in a caste sensitivity workshop, to be a hero, you have to stand up and say, I come from a casteist family. I'm so proud that you are teaching us this. I'm very apologetic. I admit, we have all been very casteist. And I come from IIT, that got a lot of caste prejudice. And right here we have caste prejudice. Yeah, we should bring you. So the person who goes along with whatever the agenda is of these people is sort of seen like a hero. Then he becomes a spokesman for them. Then he can be useful for them. So this is a game that's going on. And I think this book is going to stir up a lot of discussion in Silicon Valley and a lot of discussion in the IIT circles and other engineering colleges also, that your brand name and your credibility as an institution is being destroyed under all this social justice, critical caste theory, etc., etc. And so as these battles get ignited and there are more and more such problems being discussed openly, our book is intending to have more open dialogues. Then the heat will go on the Indian billionaires who are funding all this. That you are the guys who are funding all this, jahan se baatein shuru ho rahi hain. And this is the effect is on Indian society or Indians in Silicon Valley. It doesn't end at Silicon Valley. So first I'm saying that what starts at Harvard ends up in Silicon Valley, but it doesn't limit itself. Once Microsoft HR department says, okay, policy, which is what they're lobbying to do. They want a lobby, these social justice people are lobbying that all the HR departments should require caste census and caste workshops and a lot of rules and regulations that any issue regarding caste will be treated like racism. And now as these things gain momentum and once they take root in the United States, then the next step is, okay, now your subsidiary in India has to follow the same. And then the thing after that is that the outsourcing, the companies that outsource to you cannot have these racist policies. And then another thing they want to lobby for is H-1B visa. When you apply to the US Embassy in Delhi for an H-1B visa. Caste batao, wo survey karenge, wo batayenge, ye wo plana quotas lagenge. I mean, I don't want to bring American politics into it, but I will say that the fringe element of the Democratic Party who call themselves progressives have really become totally ridiculous, not only for destroying India but also for destroying America, because they've gone into this thing. And if they were to have another 5 years, 10 years, all this will become law. All this will become law. There was also a bill, they tried to have a bill on Islamophobia. I don't know if you know that.
I know.
I fought it. I fought that and we stopped it in the Senate. But it was a bill that passed the US Congress that singled out Islamophobia as something that would be considered a crime under US law, but not Jewish phobia, Christian phobia, Hindu phobia, no other.
बाकियों को गाली दो बस, बाकी नहीं.
It would be a law only for Islamophobia. And that too, a special cell of Muslim experts would be created in the US State Department to adjudicate whether somebody is accused of Islamophobia, kya karna chahiye uske.
But Audrey Truschke knows more about Hinduism than Hindus.
And so she would be the one who adjudicating. She would be the one, she would be on that committee adjudicating, because people like her and her superiors in this whole cabal, this whole ecosystem that have come up with this. So imagine how ridiculous it is. So when it passed through the Congress, and that's when I heard about it, because people thought it's a joke. It passed through the Congress. One vote against it, all the other 200 and some votes for it, all Democrats only, and the Republicans mostly abstained. They didn't know what the hell this means, what to do. So then Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey, my senator, I funded him. We know each other. He's been hosted. His biggest supporters are some Indians only. IITians and Indians who live in my neighborhood. They bring him and they raise a lot of money for him. I've written checks for him. He is the one who puts it in the Senate floor for vote. And had it gone through, it would have become law because Biden would have signed it. But the moment he put it on the floor, I called his office and I said, "We are pissed off. Have you read it? What is nonsense it is?" So he didn't want to address it, acknowledge it. He's trying to pretend, he doesn't. So I made it public. I wrote a dear Senator Cory Booker, and I made a public letter to him and put it out everywhere, and send it to all my friends, send it to all the Indians, send it to the media in the US, and that bill never went through. It is not withdrawn, nor is it being voted on. It's just sitting in cold storage. So thankfully, because had it turned into law, it would be pretty bad for us. It would be pretty bad because then every time there's a fight with the Muslim, Hindu or somewhere in India, it would be part of US law to prosecute these kind of cases. So imagine how the United States is becoming so irresponsible in exporting this nonsensical stuff. It's also against the US Constitution. This is what I pointed out. Because US Constitution is very clear, you cannot be in favor of any religion. Mm-hmm. So how do you make a law that protects one religion but not others? Ya to tum free speech, either you believe in free speech, which says that you can criticize, you don't have to believe Islam, you don't have to believe any religion.
और US में तो hate speech भी allowed है by law.
Hate speech allowed है.
Supreme Court की judgment है US की.
KKK has a right, Ku Klux Klan has a right to have rallies, as long as they're not talking violence. As long as you don't cross the thing about violence, you can have ideologically any point of view. You can burn the American flag. You can burn the American flag as a symbol of the country because that's part of your speech rights. So a country of that sort passing a law against Islamophobia is sort of so antithetical to the whole principle of democracy. I mean, I was just shocked. And the same people in the Democratic Party who put this bill out went to Pakistan. They went to Pakistan occupied Kashmir, and they made all these speeches, and they're accusing India and accusing the whole government and all that stuff. I'm not BJP fan man and all that. I'm a neutral thinker. I like many things they do, and I don't
BJP को काफी criticize भी करते हो.
Yeah, I am very open, but I'm Indian. I'm an Indian thinker. I look at it as an Indian point of view, and wherever BJP is right or anybody is right, I like it. Where they're not, they're not. So I'm not upset because they were criticizing BJP per se, but they're criticizing India as a society, India as a culture, as a civilization, Indian constitution and IITs. They're really, when you attack IITs, those are Nehru's ideas, Nehruvian structure.
Yeah, ironically.
So, so I feel that the world has gone to a very ridiculous extreme, taking this wokeism.
Yeah. And do you think ये वोकिज्म भी बड़ी विचित्र है अमेरिका की अच्छी बात भी है बुरी बात भी है और आपने जैसे बोला ये वर्कशॉप्स पनप रही हैं अभी ये कास्ट बेस्ड वर्कशॉप आई एम नॉट सरप्राइज क्योंकि अगर रॉबिन डिएंजेलो यू डू मेंशन हर इन द बुक आल्सो मैंने उसकी बुक पढ़ी थी वो वाइट फ्रेजिलिटी तौबा मेरी तौबा मैंने कभी उससे घटिया बुक नहीं पढ़ी मेरी लाइफ में मतलब मैंने मेरे बाल नोच लिए उसके वैसे ही बहुत कम बाल है मेरे मगर मैंने मेरे बाल नोच लिए वो बुक पढ़ के उसके बाद मैंने इवरम एक्स कैंडी को पढ़ा फंडा बड़ा क्लियर है कैपिटलिज्म ड्राइव्स ऑल दीज थिंग्स अभी वो उनकी वर्कशॉप्स में पढ़ रहा था एक और है जी हमारी इंडियन ही है वो सायरा राव भी एक ऐसी वर्कशॉप चलाती है अमेरिका में बैठ के उनको जी 6,000 रुपए डॉलर मतलब रुपए नहीं डॉलर पर हेड मिलते हैं तो उन्होंने तो अच्छी दुकान ये खुली दुकान है
दिस इज अ बिग इंडस्ट्री
या अब हमारे भी इंडियन जो है उनको लग रहा है यार दुकान तो बहुत अच्छी है सानू भी करना चाहिए तो चलो हम भी दुकान में घुसते हैं ये बेसिकली कैपिटलिज्म इज ड्राइविंग दिस मतलब किसी को 2 पैसे की भी अक्ल होगी उसको समझ पड़ जाएगा कि एक वोक कैपिटलिज्म हो रहा है अभी मगर सर इसमें
So do you think that in India just to ask you this do you think in India people have the opportunity I don't know if they ever use it or not to go and blackmail the Indian industrialists there only why do you do it in Harvard why don't they go to these Indian industrialists and say आपकी 20-story building है आप ये कर रहे हैं वो कर रहे हो हम आए हैं हमारी कम्युनिटी को तुमने दबा के रखा है ऑप्रेस करके रखा है हमारी दुकानें छोटे मोटे जो ठेले वाले लोग थे उनको बंद करके आपने अपनी सुपरमार्केट लगा दी है why don't they go and say that in India itself that you are an oppressor in our society and the way out is हमारे को वर्कशॉप करवाओ हमारी ये वो करवाओ hush money it's like blackmail हो रहा है ऐसे कि नहीं हो रहा?
सर ये हमेशा से होता था, मगर इसका स्टाइल है ना इंडिया में पता नहीं आपको ये कॉन्वर्सेशन याद नहीं, बहुत साल पहले आप में एक पर्सनल मीटिंग में थे हम लोग, वहां पे आपको याद है कि पता नहीं किसी ने एक इवेंजलिस्ट कैसे मनी लीक करते हैं इंडिया में उसकी कहानी बताई थी।
राइट।
आपको याद है वो बंदे ने हम दोनों को कहा था कि यार ये कन्वर्जन फेल क्यों होती है, हमने उसको पूछा था, मतलब होती है मगर काफी फेल होती है। बोलते क्या करेगा, इंडियन जितने करप्ट है, 100 रुपया देते 50 रुपया खा जाते हैं।
In fact, Swami Dayananda Saraswati used to tell me, he says one good news. I said, why? He says, all this evangelist money, 90% of it is not being used for that because these parties are eating after money.
तो ये सर हमारे वहाँ, आपको मैं बैंड्रा की बात बताता हूँ, बॉम्बे में आपको याद होगा बैंड्रा करके एक सबब है, ये होता है बड़े इंडिया में। ब्यूटी क्या है मालूम है, इंडिया की करप्शन भी बड़ी यूनिक है। यहाँ पे जैसे मैंने देखा है इन देशों में है ना, गोरों की करप्शन बड़ी सोफिस्टिकेटेड होती है। वो लोग पहले लॉबीइस्ट बन जाते हैं, फिर सुपर पैक्स बनाते हैं। वो है क्या, वो तो पैसा लेने का एक तरीका ही है इनका, और कुछ तो है नहीं। इन्होंने क्या किया है कि इन्होंने अपने म्युनिसिपल लेवल पे करप्शन कर दिए बंद, तो आम आदमी को इतना असर नहीं होता, ऊपर के लेवल पे करते हैं। हमारी डेमोक्रेटाइज्ड है करप्शन। हमारी करप्शन कैसी है कि चपरासी भी पैसे खाएगा, बोलेगा भाई फाइल लानी है, डाल गांधी उधर, गांधी डालेंगे तो हिलेगा। तो हमारी थोड़ी इक्विटेबल है, हमारी एक्चुअली सोशल जस्टिस करप्शन है।
इक्वल
अपॉर्चुनिटी। तो आप अगर इंडिया में देखोगे ना, ये एनजीओ का सिस्टम है। आप बैंड्रा में जाओगे, अब मैं आपको सीधा बोल रहा हूँ, एएलएम होती है, एरिया की लोकल कमिटीज होती है। वो करते क्या है, अभी समझ लो फॉर एग्जाम्पल मेट्रो का प्रोजेक्ट आ रहा है या कोई ब्रिज आ रहा है, आपके एनजीओ आ जाएंगे उधर, प्लेकार्ड लेके आ जाएंगे। सडनली वो एनजीओ गायब हो जाता है, सडनली वो एनजीओ गायब हो जाएगा, मगर थोड़े दिन के लिए आता है। क्या होता है सर, सबको पता है क्या हो रहा है। सब जो आदमी उधर बॉम्बे में पला पड़ा है, सबको पता है, सबको पता है ये क्या हो रहा है। मगर हमारे वहां क्या मालूम है, अभी जैसे बिल्डिंग में एक बच्चे ने एमबीए किया, फिर बिल्डिंग के सारे बच्चे देखते उसने एमबीए किया, उसने जॉब ले ली, उसके पास आ गई है गाड़ी अभी बड़ी वाली सेडान, तो गली का हर बच्चा एमबीए करेगा। इंडिया में क्या होता है, जो रेप्लिकेशन होती है ना एक पर्टिकुलर मीम की, वो बहुत फास्ट होती है। तो इंडिया में अगर एक एनजीओ ने किया ना, तो 5000 एनजीओ आ जाएंगे, तो उसका वो डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन होता है ना, वो बहुत फास्ट हो जाता है। तो हर आदमी फिर घुसने की कोशिश करता है। अनलाइक अमेरिका, मैंने नोट किया अमेरिका में क्या है कि वो जो पीस ऑफ द पाई है ना, ये नाम का, ये लोग बहुत कम लोग खाते हैं उसको। तो एक बीएलएम आया, आपने नोट किया है यहां पे बीएलएम के ऑफशूट्स नहीं हुए, बीएलएम ही रहा। हो सकता था ना, आप 500 बीएलएम कर सकते थे ना, मगर इनकी जो सोशल जस्टिस फिरौती है ना, वो भी बड़ी एब्राहमिक है, टॉप डाउन है। और हमारी सोशल जस्टिस फिरौती है ना, वो बड़ी हिंदू है, डिसेंट्रलाइज। तो उसका जो, अच्छा दूसरा मेरा ये पर्सनल ओपिनियन है, आई वांट टू हियर योर पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू आल्सो, कि इंडिया में ये लोग हमको क्या वो अभी आप शांति से सोचो, आपकी किताब में आपने बताया वोकिज्म के एम क्या है, ठीक है। ये लोग कोटास की बात करते हैं अमेरिका में, करेक्ट। ये बेसिकली जो वोकस्टर्स हैं, ठीक है, इंडिया में तो ऑलरेडी है, मतलब तुम लाओगे क्या नया। अच्छा, ये लोग बात करते हैं आइडेंटिटी पॉलिटिक्स की, अमेरिका में नहीं है इतनी आइडेंटिटी पॉलिटिक्स, अब आ रही है।
इट्स नॉट इन द, दे डोंट हैव फ्रैगमेंटेड पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज,
ठीक है, इंडिया में ऑलरेडी है। तो मैं कई बार कोने में बैठ के सोचता हूं कि काके तू बात कर रहा है ये लाऊंगा मैं वो लाऊंगा, तू बोलेगा कास्ट बेस्ड, ऑलरेडी इंडिया में पार्टी है, इंडिया में लिंग्विस्टिक बेस्ड पार्टी है, इंडिया में रिलीजन बेस्ड पार्टी है, इंडिया में रीजन बेस्ड पार्टी है। मौला तू वो नाम बोल, इंडिया में वो अवेलेबल है, थाली के अंदर परोसा हुआ। इंडिया में आइडेंटिटी, इनफैक्ट मेरे को तो समझ नहीं पड़ रहा है कि ये लोग इंडिया में लाना क्या चाहते हैं। मेरे को तो हंसी आती है इनको देखकर।
So this is why I feel that if the billionaires at Harvard would stop this nonsense, this whole thing would collapse.
Yeah.
This business would collapse because there's nobody would be there to take these workshops to the Silicon Valley people, and this whole all this anger and energy being channeled against India would go away because the people in India would say we already have enough discussion on social justice. We have enough parties.
Yeah.
We have enough people filing lawsuits, cases, nothing new happening, nothing new about it. We are already doing it.
Yeah.
Why do we need Americans for it?
सर ये 72 जेंडर की बात करते हैं, कितने लोगों को ये पता है इंडिया ऑफिशियली 3 जेंडर रिकॉग्नाइज करता है, आज से नहीं कर रहा है। इंडिया तो 5000 साल से 3,
right.
स्त्रीलिंग, पुल्लिंग और किन्नर, तीन मेल फीमेल किन्नर, हम 3 ऑफिशियली। आप कोई भी गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया की वेबसाइट में जाएंगे, आपको ऑप्शन दी जाती है बकायदा, आज से थोड़ी ना दी जा रही है, आप जब रहते थे तब भी इंडिया में यही था। तो मुझे समझ नहीं पड़ रहा है इनकी, ये बेसिकली क्या है, इंडियंस ने रियलाइज कर लिया भाई पैसा है,
And
भाई हम भी बहती गंगा में हाथ धो लेते हैं।
And but the destruction is this whole business of oppressor oppressed, and unite all the
ये
oppressed.
सर मैं चाहता हूँ ये आप बताइए इसके बारे में.
This whole business that you find everybody who's got a grievance,
Yes.
and you tell him that under the Marxist idea of oppressor oppressed, you are oppressed, and the oppressor is all the structures of history which the dominant people have made for a long time, and so those structures have to be destroyed. So that those structures are the thesis, and you have to create an antithesis. We'll help you do that. We are the doctors who know how to figure it out. हम आपके लिए help करेंगे. So these intellectuals, activists, leftist kind of people, wokists, they are working with people that they want to convince you are oppressed. You are oppressed by your own society. So in oppressed लोगों को unite करके against the nation, that is the Breaking India 2.0. So you unite all the people that you can convince are oppressed. You know, in US there is something called fat studies. It's called fat studies. So fat studies is a serious thing. They're going around doing fat studies, and the government giving grants also. And fat studies basically says that fat people are unfairly prejudiced against. They are oppressed.
हाँ, जिम में weighing scale नहीं होना
चाहिए. Because to say that being fat is bad is not biological, medical. It is a social prejudice. Yeah. मतलब being fat is fine, but society has made up this idea that it is not fine. So fat studies is to say that we are oppressed, we are a victim group, and we want justice by overthrowing all this fat business. So when you tell them that, but this is irresponsible medically, because these people need medical help. They should reduce weight. We can show that the cardiac problems will go down. We can show that you are an example of it, because last time you had many more, 20 more kilos when we met. So, but they don't want logic. They don't believe in science. They don't believe in biology. So they don't believe that, human beings have different qualities, and you can't make everybody the same. And what is right for some people have math skills, some people have basketball skills, and the qualities of human beings are different, and you cannot have an equity where everybody is forced to have an equal outcome. You can't do that, because that's not the way biological science shows. So all their claims are actually, whether it is fat studies, whether it is about the equity requirement of all people, the claims are not supported by science. And the moment you bring in science and you bring in evidence, or you ask for data, then they go to cancel culture. Means that अब आप science की बात करें, you are using logic, तो आपको cancel कर देंगे. Yeah. So now cancel culture का क्या logic है? Cancel culture का उनका logic है कि the dominant people are the oppressors. उनकी बात नहीं, they should not be allowed to speak, because as long as they're speaking, we can never topple that discourse. The only way to topple the dominant discourse is to cancel the dominant people. So long as you are talking on behalf of the dominant culture, you are a part of the oppressor. And even if, and it's not a matter of making sense and whether you have data and all that, I don't care. You are supporting the dominant view, and we want to cancel you. And that will create an opportunity for the oppressed to give their point of view, and we can have a counter thesis, a counter hegemony, as they call it. This is, so now,
Hegelian dialectic.
One of my problems is that I have no problem with people saying any of this, but I have a right to speak. Don't cancel me out. I'm not cancelling you out. You can't cancel me out. We should be allowed to speak. The one thing I will not tolerate is the cancel culture, because that is the end of free speech, and that is the end of dialogue and discourse. And then what you are doing is creating what I call the church of wokeism. I call it a church.
It is.
It's got dogma. It's got high priests who can't be criticized. It has this business of infidelity. आप लोग, you are infidels.
Even an original sin like privilege.
You're infidels, original sin. Original sin is your privilege is the original sin. Yeah. You born this way, so that is your original sin. You can't change it. And this whole business of the infidels, that those who don't belong, who don't agree, they are infidels, and you can cancel them. So this church of wokeism is a very dangerous thing for free society, for democracy, and India is falling into that.
So, इनकी epistemic framework ये है, पहले ये fundamentally कहते हैं कि why do they hate science? Because वो Derridian जिसको Derrida बोलता था discourses, right? और discourses were connected to power games. तो उसमें science भी एक discourse हो गया. It is just another thing. अच्छा मजे की बात है, अगर everything is just a discourse, तो postmodernism भी just a discourse ही होना चाहिए. मतलब वो नहीं मानते.
That has been pointed out, but they don't want that.
Yeah, वो वहाँ पे वो लोग नहीं करते.
They have something called critical edition. Yeah. Critical edition of postmodernism. It's like a canon. Postmodernist canon. Yeah. मतलब उन्होंने word भी use किया canon. So canon means it is a dominant discourse.
Yeah.
All the English honest people in the world study that.
Yeah.
They are taught it like in Bible school. They are taught Bible. They are taught from Derrida and Foucault all the way to this Bhabha and Gayatri Spivak and all these sort of people. They are taught all that. So this is the canon of postmodernism, like the biblical canon.
तो इसके स्तंभ क्या है? पहली बात, there is no objective truth. ट्रूथ हम अटेन भी नहीं, अगर मुश्किल भी होगा तो भी नहीं कर सकते हम. ट्रूथ है ही नहीं. एवरीथिंग इज ईदर रिलेटिव या सब्जेक्टिव
एंड इट्स द रिजल्ट ऑफ पावर.
या एंड इट इज एवरीथिंग इज बेस्ड ऑन पावर. सो अगर आप पावरफुल हो गए, जैसे पता नहीं, मैं कई बार जोक भी करता हूँ कि इंडियंस इंडिया में फेयर एंड लवली लगाते गए, फाइनली वो अमेरिका में व्हाइट एडजेसेंट हो गए कम से कम. सो मतलब इतनी फेयर एंड लवली लगाई हमने इंडिया में तो हम व्हाइट नहीं हो पाए, मगर अमेरिका में हमको व्हाइट एडजेसेंट डिक्लेयर कर दिया है. क्यों? क्योंकि हम सक्सेसफुल हो गए मॉनेटरी लैडर में. तो वो उनके चक्कर में नहीं बैठते हम लोग. मतलब वो डार्क से डार्क स्किन इंडियन होगा मगर वो व्हाइट एडजेसेंट है.
राइट.
तो मतलब इनके तो हिसाब नहीं समझ रहे. एक हो गया कि कोई ट्रूथ ही नहीं है, तो ट्रूथ नहीं है, और उसके बाद कह देते हैं कि जी साइंस भी एक वेस्टर्न कंस्ट्रक्ट है. अच्छा, इट इज सो कॉन्डेसेंडिंग टू अदर कल्चर्स. बाकी सब झक मार रहे थे, सब कुछ गोरों ने ही किया है. मतलब ये एक्चुअली में मैं कई बार इनको सुनता हूँ, मुझे लगता है कि मतलब यू गाइस आर सो फुल ऑफ योरसेल्फ कि द प्रॉब्लम इज दैट on one side you have supremacism, on one side you have guilt. Both make white people the center of the universe. Right? I mean, in white guilt also the white person is the center of the universe, because nobody can be worse than the white person ever. And in white supremacism the white person is the center of the universe. Nobody can be better than the white person. तो मतलब हम दोनों में नंबर 1 है. नंबर 1 हम ही रहेंगे. तुम साले नीचे रहो, मरते रहो, हमसे सीखो. अपने आप को मारना भी हमसे सीखो और दूसरों को मारना भी हमसे सीखो. तो इस चक्कर में प्रॉब्लम क्या होती है सर? जैसे एक किस्म का ल्योर है जो इंडिया से, जैसे लोगों ने, मैंने आपको कहा, डिएंजेलो से और इब्राहिम एक्स कैंडी से प्रेरणा लेके दे ट्राई टू मिल्क द ग्रेवी ट्रेन. अब एक और है, मुझे ये समझ में नहीं आता कि ये एपिस्टेमोलॉजी में फर्क क्या है. जैसे आपने, यू हैव एक्सप्लेन्ड द एपिस्टेमोलॉजी ऑफ पोस्ट कॉलोनियलिज्म and you have also explained critical race theory or critical theory or it starts from the Frankfurt School. You go into detail and you explain how Frankfurt School एक तरीके से आ रहा था, postmodernism एक तरीके से आ रहा था, फिर 80s में postmodernism को problem होती है, it enters a nihilistic trap, and then basically critical race theory and वो law से निकल के जो आती है, it is a solution to solve that nihilistic problem. Right? It is a solution to solve that problem. अब हमारे यहाँ पे भी अभी नॉर्थ अमेरिका से हमारे कुछ इंडियंस एक डीकोलोनियलिटी लेके आए हुए हैं. मुझे तो अभी तक नहीं समझ पड़ता कि डीकोलोनियलिटी और पोस्ट कॉलोनियलिज्म में क्या फर्क है. कोई
डीकोलोनियलिटी के who are the leaders that you want to name?
So I think Indu Vishwanathan is doing decoloniality in North America. One, I think Sai Deepak has promoted decoloniality in his book, the first book. Basically, decoloniality is a Latin American epistemology of Piano and Mignolo. वो लोग की है. Now, what I have not understood is,
it's just a buzzword they can use and try to look original.
No, but the danger part is that in this entire process, what scares me as an individual, I have nothing personal against anyone. I believe even decoloniality has to be a legitimate epistemology that has to be presented on the table. My fear is this, that whether it's post-colonialism, whether it's postmodernism, whether it's critical race theory, whether it's intersectionality,
it is anti-objectivity.
Or anti-objectivity, and there is no individual. Yeah. It is just, it's like groups jostling with each other.
Right.
There is zero अगर आप याद होगा कि मैं आपको being different पे लेके जाता हूँ. बीइंग डिफरेंट का एक निष्कर्ष क्या था कि एट द एंड ऑफ द डे, आपको याद होगा आपने वो हिंदू गुड न्यूज की बात की थी. हिंदू गुड न्यूज का आपका फंडामेंटल प्रेमिस क्या था? हम इंडिविजुअल हैं. क्योंकि आप हिंदू गुड न्यूज में आप क्या कहते थे कि भाई मेरे कर्मों का फल तो मैं ही पाने वाला हूं. अभी वो ठीक है, वो आगामी प्रारब्ध कर्म वो सब होते हैं, वो ठीक है, थोड़ा बहुत फैमिली को चीटे गिरते हैं, वो अलग बात है. मगर पॉइंट ये है कि एट अ फंडामेंटल कोर धार्मिक फिलॉसफी इंडिविजुअलिस्टिक है, एट अ मेटाफिजिकल लेवल एंड अ स्पिरिचुअल लेवल. सोसाइटी में हम लोग कलेक्टिविस्ट होंगे, वो ठीक है, पॉलिटिकल सिस्टम है वो, मगर एट अ स्पिरिचुअल लेवल धार्मिक फिलॉसफी इज फियर्सली इंडिविजुअलिस्टिक. ठीक है. Abrahamic philosophy at a metaphysical spiritual level fiercely collectivistic.
Yeah, it is.
पूरी collectivistic.
You are this chosen tribe comes starting with that.
ठीक है. Yeah. अब मुझे डर क्या लगता है, भले वो decoloniality हो, भले ये epistemologies हो, अगर individual खत्म हो गया तो क्या हमारा कर्म भी collective होने वाले हैं अभी?
This is what Jung believed. The one thing that Jung didn't like about the Jung's break away from Jung was a great student of Patanjali. In the 1930s, he was teaching yoga in Zurich. He was teaching some institutes in Zurich. He was teaching the chakra system in Zurich. And all the words that entered Jungian thought, mandala and karma and all these things, Jung only brought after studying India. He went to India and refused to meet Ramana Maharshi because he was scared to meet Ramana Maharshi. But he went to India for a tour and all that stuff, came back. So Jung is the person who came up with this idea that he is willing to accept karma, but karma as a collective karma, not as an individual karma. Because karma as an individual karma would require him to discard Christianity. So he wanted to appropriate, as uske baare mein book likh raha on the whole
you do mention
this thing about Jung and his relationship with Hindu thought and Judeo-Christianity and all that. So basically he wanted to appropriate as much of the Hindu thought and Buddhist thought as he possibly could without toppling Christianity any more than necessary. He wanted to accommodate it in Christianity in some way, although the church wasn't happy with this kind of thinking. And basically the individual karma was the stumbling block for him. So he accepted collective karma.
तो मगर ये डेंजरस नहीं आपको लगता है कि अगर हमारी विजन में इंडिविजुअल राइट्स ही नहीं रहेंगे?
The danger of collective karma is it will generate supremacy. It will generate that we as a collective have a superior karma against you guys.
Yes. और कल को
and you can't solve this problem of social justice in that framework.
Yes.
So we have to bring this out and say the fundamental flaw you have in your social justice program is you're operating within a certain framework where you cannot solve this problem.
Exactly.
That's what we have to say.
It is so scary, and like I said, I have been a fierce critic of decoloniality without having any prejudice against individuals at an epistemic level. I've been mocked for it for some odd reason, I don't know why, but I get scared when I see that your fundamental premise, abhi koi bolega human rights is a construct. मैंने बोला हाँ तो group rights is also a construct, you know?
So basically we agree that the people who are championing decoloniality are trying to solve one problem but creating another problem.
Exactly, and that scares me.
Yeah, and that problem could be worse.
Yes.
Because it's camouflaged as a solution.
Yeah. And the irony of it all is, now I'm going to take another scholar's example whom you mentioned. You have dedicated a chapter to him in your book, Suraj Yengde. Again, we're going back to Harvard. So मैंने उसकी book पढ़ी थी ये Caste Matters.
Yeah.
ठीक है.
He's the poster boy.
Yeah.
See, we used to criticize that fellow, that Bobby Jindal.
हाँ जी.
He's become honorary white. So he's become Suraj Yengde is the honorary black.
Okay.
He's trying to become black.
Okay. But उसकी बुक की एक बड़ी अजीब सी बात थी. मैंने जब वो बुक पढ़ी थी ना, मैंने पूरी बुक पढ़ी. ठीक है. I mean, anybody who knows me knows I am very, very open about the annihilation part of caste. I mean, when Ambedkar said annihilation of caste, I was like, okay, good, annihilate it. It has no use today. You want to annihilate it? I could care less.
In fact, I have written a whole section on that.
Yeah.
On Ambedkar.
In fact, I want to read a quote also. आपकी book में, in fact, there is a particular quote that stood out to me. अब मानोगे नहीं, जब आपका ये कोट आया था तो मैंने ये कोट आपका निकाला और मेरे दोस्त को भेजा. मैंने बोला राजीव जी ने ये कोट लिखा है अपनी बुक में. आप ये आपकी किंडल वर्जन में पेज 382 है, मुझे हार्ड कॉपी वर्जन नहीं मालूम. आपने लिखा था कोलैप्स ऑफ द कास्ट सिस्टम डज नॉट पोज अ थ्रेट टू हिंदुइज्म सर्वाइवल. Hinduism is like a banyan tree with many different systems of roots, trunks and branches with no single point of failure. Hence, those who do not practice Hinduism are fully capable of being Hindus. ये आपकी बुक में से मैं कोट पढ़ रहा हूँ. This is such a profound thing to, and this is a gutsy thing to say, by the way, क्योंकि आपको बहुत brickbats मिलेंगे इसके लिए, भयंकर मिलने वाले हैं आपको. क्योंकि कई लोगों के हिसाब से सर बिना जाति वर्ण के हिंदुइज्म कुछ है ही नहीं. और आप कह रहे हो कि भाई हो सकता है, कुशल जैसा भी हो सकता है, कुशल जैसा भी हो सकता है. और अब मैं सूरज येंगड़े के पास जाता हूँ. उसकी भी बुक की जो आयरनी आप देखो, जो लोग जो एक साइड में हिंदू हैं जो बोलते हैं बिना जाति वर्ण के हिंदुइज्म नहीं हो सकता, दे ओनली एग्री विद वन साइड, द सूरज येंगड़ेस ऑफ द वर्ल्ड. आयरनी देखो, सूरज येंगड़ेस ऑफ द वर्ल्ड एंड जाति वर्ण इज एसेंशियल टू हिंदुइज्म आर ऑल इन एग्रीमेंट विद ईच अदर. वो दोनों की ऐसी टीम वर्क है. वो दूसरे तरीके से एग्री करता है, ये दूसरे तरीके से एग्री करते हैं, और दोनों की एपिस्टेमिक फ्रेमवर्क है ना एक ही है. देयर इज नो इंडिविजुअल, देयर आर ओनली ग्रुप्स. एक कास्ट दूसरे कास्ट, या एक जाति दूसरी जाति, एक ग्रुप दूसरा ग्रुप, हम एक दूसरे से वही करते रहेंगे. मैं कुशल मेहरा एज एन इंडिविजुअल राजीव मल्होत्रा एज एन इंडिविजुअल से कोई बात नहीं कर सकता हूँ, अलाउड नहीं है, तो इसका हम करें क्या है?
So I will recommend a very good, you're a good reader, so I'll tell you, you should read French President Macron on this. He is a prolific thinker and writer and audacious fellow on this very issue. And he said, I'm paraphrasing, this book मैंने कहीं लिखा हुआ है, but there's a lot more on him that I did not put in this book. I'm going to put in another one. He says that the French Revolution and the idea of liberty and rights is at the individual level. There is no such thing as Muslim rights. He says that the reason I reject wokeism is because you guys are saying that there is some special Muslim rights and there's some special rights of this group and that group and white, under that will destroy. He says that will destroy France. It will destroy France because the fundamental principle of France has to do with individual rights and individual liberty, and collective identities do not have collective rights. So he says every Muslim has all the same rights as anyone else in France as an individual, but not that you are a Muslim and all of you together have some special rights. This is very profound. And he made this statement so many times, and he got his education minister to cancel all this wokeism type courses in the social justice in France. So he has balancing. He doesn't want to be branded as right wing and all that, but he's not along the lines of this fringe
Absolutely.
left. The leftist fringe is not there.
He's not.
He's quite a smart guy.
Yeah.
And I would suggest to Indians that you should read Macron.
Yeah.
Because he's respected. He's not some kind of fringe guy, and the world respects him. America respects him as a great ally. He's a very charismatic fellow, and he is so clear on this business of the danger of collective identity rights and the danger of collective identity politics getting in, as opposed to individual rights. He thinks that this is the quintessential contribution of France to the modern world.
Yeah, and it would be a death of democracy itself if there are no individuals in a democracy. And ironically, येंगड़े की बुक पढ़ने के बाद कीवर्ड सर्च करी मैंने, क्योंकि मुझे डाउट था कहीं मैं गलत तो नहीं हूँ, क्योंकि कई बार होता है ना आप पढ़ रहे हो तो यू कैन मिस. तो मैंने जी सावरकर सर्च किया, पूरी बुक में सावरकर शब्द एक बार नहीं आता, जीरो. मैंने बोला यार तू बंदा क्या है, तू कास्ट के बारे में बात कर रहा है. ठीक है, ये सावरकर के शब्द थे, 7 shackles of हिंदू सोसाइटी. बंदे ने लिखा था अर्ली 1900s में. वेदोक्त बंदी, व्यवसाय बंदी, स्पर्श बंदी, समुद्र बंदी, शुद्धि बंदी, रोटी बंदी, बेटी बंदी. ये सावरकर लिख रहा है आज से कितने साल पहले. उसमें से सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट चीज है शुद्धि बंदी. द फॉली ऑफ डिसअलाउइंग रिकन्वर्जन्स टू हिंदुइज्म इज अ सेल्फ डिस्ट्रक्टिंग वन. ये और द प्रैक्टिस ऑफ अनटचेबिलिटी इज अ सिन. आप कास्ट मैटर्स के ऊपर बुक लिख रहे हो और आप सावरकर को डिस्कस नहीं करते हो. वो इज जिसको अंबेडकर ने जिसकी प्रशंसा की हुई है.
So he's been cancelled.
Basically सावरकर के बारे में कुछ बात नहीं होती है.
Harvard has cancelled it.
Yeah, and they present सावरकर as this. अगर सावरकर ने ऐसी चीजें लिखी हुई हैं. मैंने लास्ट मंथ मेरे मोनोलॉग पे जब ये पूरा किस्सा हुआ था, वो कौन सी मूवी के एक्टर आए थे, उनको भगा दिया था, तो मैंने Savarkar was such a brave man. He wrote an essay which was titled, he would have pissed Hindus off. He said the cow is bovine, not divine. He wrote that at that time. The man had guts to write that. Right. And आज तो मैं बोलता हूँ कोई नहीं लिखे उसको तो जेल ही हो जाएगी. की बात है इंडिया में तो जेल में डाल देंगे उसको. सावरकर ने ऐसी चीजें लिखी हुई हैं. मे बी मराठी में लिखते थे और बाद में अनुवाद होता था, इसके लिए फर्क पड़ता था. मगर सर ऐसी कैसी एपिस्टोमोलॉजी है जो कास्ट और कास्ट के अगेंस्ट कास्ट के रिफॉर्म्स के बारे में बात करती है और सब, और सावरकर को डिस्कस नहीं करती है. इसको कितना सीरियसली लेना चाहिए?
So you can tell it's all fabricated politically. There's a certain political motive in it. It's firstly Suraj Jagdev, while I think he's a charismatic guy, he's a kind of cute fellow. I'd love to talk to him, and I've invited him many times, but he's never accepted. While I give him all that, and maybe he means well also, he's trying to help his community, but he's not a serious scholar at all. He's not at all rigorous. He's not very logical. He doesn't, and he won't take any arguments. He'll just cancel you and accuse you, abuse you, and all that. So I don't know how they built such a guy as a big shot, as the major figure in this whole critical caste theory movement.
Secondly, he mentions RSS as a passing thing, calling them upper caste supremacist, which is ironical.
That is not true.
Yeah, it is.
I'm not an RSS man, but that's not true.
And that's not true. And irony, अभी आप ये देखो रिसेंटली मोहन भागवत जी की स्टेटमेंट आई है, वन ऑफ हिज रीसेंट अटरिंग्स में मोहन भागवत जी ने कहा है कि ये कास्ट का सिस्टम अभी पुराना हो चुका है. लिटरली जो आपका वो पैराग्राफ है ना, उन्होंने वो पैराग्राफ का नेक्स्ट वर्जन बोल दिया. उन्होंने बोला अभी यार छोड़ दो यार, ये चीज को जाने दो, कोई नए सिस्टम बनाओ, अपने अपने समाज को आगे लेके जाओ. यहाँ पे चीफ ऑफ आरएसएस ये कह रहा है, और यहाँ पे पूरी दुकान खोल के रखी हुई है. अच्छा मेरे को आपको ये एक मेरे को बात बताओ. मैं एक सीरियस थिंकर को यहाँ पे मिला था, उसने मुझे बोला मोदी इज अ ब्राह्मण फैशिस्ट. ऐसे लोग, आई मीन क्या करें ऐसे लोग?
Brahmin to begin with. I mean, this is yeah. So you see, the thing is, a place like Harvard champions ignorance. For whatever reason, you can be totally ignorant. They'll cancel you if you try to oppose such an ignorant person, and they have so much clout. So all this is supporting the thesis of our book. That you can come up with any number of. We've quoted so many things that are being published under the name of our Indian billionaires in the Harvard centers, which are totally illogical, which are one-sided. Other side is not allowed. I'll tell you another thing. R. Vaidyanathan has written a lot about caste.
Yes.
And caste and economics. And he's talked about both sides, how caste can hold them back and caste groups economically can also move forward. He's written on both sides and he's got a lot of data. Now he's from a respectable university, he's got a good position and all that. Harvard has never invited him. This Mittal Center of South Asia Studies, they have all this caste and economics discussion. Oot-patang, useless people talking all kind of stuff like big experts. And because they're talking at Harvard, they're built up as experts. They've never invited him. They never discuss his works. And this is such a shame. I've even written that you're having this panel, invite him. You can disagree with him, but invite him. Never invited him. So this is the problem of this sort of an extremism, where you only listen to, like an echo chamber, you listen to those you agree with. And that builds mediocrity and produces people like Suraj Jende, Ajanta Subramaniam. All these kind of mediocre people are boosted for no reason.
Before we wrap it up, I think because ये मेरा rule होता है, मैं हमेशा problems discuss करने के बाद I believe कि प्रॉब्लम पॉइंट आउट करना एक बहुत ज़रूरी पॉइंट होता है, मगर सोल्यूशन देना उससे भी ज़रूरी होता है और सबसे कठिन होता है. और आपकी राइटिंग की खासियत हमेशा रही है कि आप सोल्यूशन भी देते हो, आप सिर्फ प्रॉब्लम नहीं बताते हो. ये मैं आपको आज, मुझे भी 12-13 साल हो गए आपको जान के, आप हमेशा सोल्यूशन भी देते हो. और अराउंड 70% जो मेरा लिसनर बेस है वो 35 एंड बिलो है, यंग लोग हैं, सब यंग लोग हैं. तो अभी उसमें डायस्पोरा भी बहुत है. इसमें खास तौर पे मुझे चिंता इंडियन पॉलिसी के ऊपर है इन्फ्लुएंस की, मुझे और सबसे ज़्यादा चिंता डायस्पोरा की है. बिना बात के डायस्पोरा के बच्चों को यहाँ पे तब सताया जा रहा है. टू बी वेरी ऑनेस्ट, ये कास्ट का जो, मतलब मेरी अपनी वाइफ बॉर्न एंड रेज्ड है कनाडा में, उसको कास्ट क्या था कुछ नहीं मालूम था. वो यहाँ पे पैदा हुई, उसको क्या मालूम जात क्या होती है. वो लिटरली जब इंडिया वापस गई तो उसको पता चला उसकी जात क्या है, क्योंकि इंडिया में आपको बाय डिफॉल्ट पता चल जाता है, सिस्टम ही वैसा है, कोटे का सिस्टम है, हर जगह है वो. तो अब यहाँ पे बच्चे पैदा हुए. मगर इसका अगर आपको कोई यंग बच्चा आके बोलेगा, मैं उनके बिहाफ पे एक प्रश्न पूछ रहा हूँ आपको. इफ दे कम टू यू एंड से, सर व्हाट डू वी डू विद दिस नेक्स्ट टाइम समबडी कम्स अप एंड accuses us with this danda of diversity, equity, inclusion, how do I deal with it?
So one thing I want you to know is that this chapter 6 of this book is about a 100-page standalone book. It's all on Indian social organization, the history of Indian social structures, varna, jati, caste, how historically it has evolved. It is not some absolute thing. It is not a fixed thing. It was not caste system as such per se all the time. And so that's a nice. We're going to take that out and make a separate book. The reason we're going to make a separate book is 100-page, readable by young people, exactly the type of person you mentioned. We want to popularize this and turn it into courses. Maybe you can help us. We want to have, documentaries and discussions and videos and all that with influencers, YouTube, social media influencers. So the idea is to conduct. Our solution is we want to make this little book. We want to conduct serious workshops with our young people about. Firstly, they should know facts. They should know the facts historically. They should know the facts from a scriptural point of view and what is what, because the scriptures have never been very consistent in one view. There have been many discussions, debates and contradictions here and there, people talking back and forth on all through history without any foreign intervention coming in with the danda. People from within India have contradicted each other, fought each other, argued against each other quite vibrantly on this very topic of social organization, on these, whether there is varna, jati, whether it's by birth, not birth, all of that. So people need to understand the history of all this, and people need to understand that our dharma takes this in a very, it's not like it's fixed in the dharma that everybody who is a dharmic person has to believe in this. You don't, you can reject all this. And people have rejected all this, and they're dharmic people. So they need to know that. And then, as far as being a Hindu in Canada is concerned, we are in Canada now, there is no requirement that you have to follow one of these social structures in order to be a practicing Hindu. You can be a practicing Hindu and have nothing to do with it. So the person, basically, I think that our youth need an education, how to talk back in a confident way, how to give facts, and also how to put the other guy on the spot. So this is what our book is like a manual saying, when you come across somebody, you should be able to say he's a Suraj Yangde type person. And this one is a such and such person, this one is such and such person. And I can differentiate between this guy and that guy. See, in my book, I'm even differentiating between Yangde and Ambedkar. I'm showing that Yangde is not even following Ambedkar properly.
Ambedkar to काफी आगे था.
And he calls himself Ambedkar 2.0. He calls him Ambedkar's successor. You know, he says that Ambedkar died early, didn't finish his work. I am here to continue his work. So, but he is no Ambedkar. So, our youth are easy prey, but they need to be. The problem is, parents haven't educated them. School system doesn't educate them. It is a job for people like us to give information for our youth, especially in the diaspora, because otherwise they're going to be clobbered. Bilkul, they're going to be finished off because they're neither here nor there. The white will oppress them, the black will disown them and are angry at them. This latest critical caste theory means you cannot even close ranks with the other non-white minorities in the North America and say, "Bhi, theek hai, wo white log the, aise the." They also colonized India. They colonized India. They colonized America. Native Americans ko ye kaha. You know, in my earlier works, I used to say, okay, they did all that to Native Americans. They did all that to blacks. So we can close ranks with these other minorities, and we are into reversing the colonization, the British European colonization. But now that space has been taken away, because this critical caste theory says that the blacks have to reject you. The blacks have to see you as oppressors. The blacks have to join forces with the Dalits and see you as oppressors. So now the Indian youth is stuck. There is nowhere to go. I mean, the left, the right, the whites, the blacks, everybody hating you. This is a very sad situation that we find ourselves in. So, and we have to work our way out of it with proper knowledge. That's the battle that we have started.
So the ironical thing in all of this is यहाँ पे अगर ये लोग कास्ट का डंडा अगर किसी एक कम्युनिटी फ्रॉम इंडिया, मैं तो खुला बोल रहा हूँ, के ऊपर अगर मार सकते हैं, हम खालिस्तान सेंट्रल में हैं इस समय अगर किसी के ऊपर, आप पंजाबी हो, मैं पंजाबी हूँ, पंजाब से हैं हम लोग एथनिकली, ऑल्दो आप दिल्ली वाले पंजाबी हो, मैं बॉम्बे वाला पंजाबी हूँ, मगर हम सबको मालूम है कि अगर एक रियल कास्ट बेस्ड आइडेंटिटेरियन मूवमेंट है नॉर्थ अमेरिका में, तो वो है खालिस्तान. इट इज ऑफ द जट, फॉर द जट, बाय द जट.
राइट.
और किसी के लिए नहीं है, मतलब उसमें जट के अलावा और कोई अलाउड नहीं है. और उस मजे की बात ये होती है कि ये ऑपरेशन ओलंपिक्स, जिसको ये फैजल सैयद अल बुत्तार ने ये वर्ड निकाला था, ऑपरेशन ओलंपिक्स, या आई थिंक डॉक्टर गैट साहब उसको विक्टिमोलॉजी पोकर बोलता है. ये ऐसी अजीब किस्म की चीज है कि उसमें जो रियल कास्टिस्ट है वो आपको कास्टिस्ट बुला रहा है और आपको आपकी कास्ट ही नहीं मालूम है.
So I was in one of these clubhouse discussions and some Khalistanis showed up, and they all attacked me as a Brahmin from RSS. I'm not a Brahmin anyway, and I'm not RSS either, but unko sikhaya gaya tha. So then I decided I'm going to leave. So then their leader called me back privately and he said, "Nee, please, aap join karo." I said, "Tumhare badtameez log hain, they don't even want to listen to me. You should let me speak for myself rather than imagine what I'm going to say, because I haven't said any of those things that you're accusing me of." So he then said कि आपको बोलने देंगे. So then when I went back, he told his people कि अच्छा सुनने दो उनको, उनकी बात सुनो. And so they were quiet. So I said, "I want to ask you questions. You're accusing Brahmins, from RSS for creating problems. But let me ask you, Punjab में कितने Brahmin हैं? आपने कोई जाना Brahmin Punjab में?" So I said, "I'm asking you, ना बोलो. If anybody knows a Brahmin in Punjab, you tell me." They were chup ho rahe. Okay, then I said, "Let me tell you what the problems of Punjab are. Problems of Punjab are, firstly, Christianity is converting you guys. There are more churches coming up in Punjab than anywhere else. Tumhare Sikhism is going. Tumhara Sikhism ko destroy karne wala, there's no Brahmin Shramin coming and doing it. It is the Christianity that is finishing you off." Chup rahe. Then I said, next problem I want to tell you about is drugs. You know how much drug culture there is. तुम्हारे जो जट लोग हैं, farming वाले हैं, they have finished that society of Punjab is gone. You better know that rather than targeting some Brahmins from RSS to create your problems, you got to target the drug culture, yeah, and you got to target the Christian evangelism that's going on. They were dumbfounded, these guys. All of the Canada से ये लोग थे, वो खालिस्तान।
हंसी यहाँ के वो यूनिक ब्रीड है सर, मेरे को इतनी हंसी आती है। पंजाब के बारे में मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन लेजेंडरी है। हाईएस्ट कॉन्सेंट्रेशन ऑफ दलित्स इन इंडिया पंजाब में है, 33% है। लोएस्ट लैंड ओनरशिप इन टर्म्स ऑफ दलित लैंड ओनरशिप पंजाब में है, लेस देन 3%। गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया के रिकॉर्ड्स हैं। आपका एसजीपीसी सर से लेकर पैर तक एक दलित सिख को अलाउ नहीं करता ऑफिस होल्डर। सारे कास्टिज्म हिंदुओं में है। उसके बाद जी आपके गाने जटा ए ते जटी ओ, जटा ए ते जटी ओ, पूरा टाइम सुबह से शाम तक जटा जटा करते रहते हैं। मतलब इट इज सो ऑब्वियस। और उसके बाद जी ये करना, और ये ब्यूटी है इस एपिस्टोमोलॉजी की कि ये एपिस्टोमोलॉजी में, क्योंकि आपने जैसे कहा ऑब्जेक्टिविटी नहीं होती, क्योंकि अगर किसी ने उसको एक ऑब्जेक्टिव स्टैंडर्ड कि ओके दिस इज डिस्क्रिमिनेशन,
सो यू हैव नो बेसिस टू आर्ग्यू।
या तो आप आर्ग्यू क्या करो, कुछ भी कोई बोली जाता है, कोई भी आता है,
whoever is the loudest,
yes,
the most biggest bully, he can get it.
This is why I used, because we are in Canada and I wanted to use this, कि yes, there is casteism in North America. This is the casteist in North America.
Right.
You want to fight casteism? I'm with you, man. Let's go and ask them, will you allow a non-Jat to be a jathedar? Will you allow it? आप ये छोड़ दो ना, पंजाब में हिंदू सीएम हो सकता है? मैं एज ए हिंदू पूछना चाहता हूँ, ये पंजाब में हिंदू सीएम हो सकता है? अगर आप क्लासिज्म और डिस्क्रिमिनेशन की बात कर रहे हैं, और क्योंकि देयर इज नो ऑब्जेक्टिविटी, आप कोई पैरामीटर ही नहीं है, अभी कोई पैरामीटर नहीं है, तो जो मेरे मन में आया मैंने बक दिया, और बस क्यों आपने जैसे कहा,
this the combination of no objectivity and cancel culture is the dangerous cocktail. It breeds fanaticism. That's what it is.
And it's so dangerous. And what scares me is that now there is a section inside the Hindu society that thinks using this epistemology is the defense. I mean, I don't know. I mean, एक तो हम already खड्डे में गिरे हुए हैं।
Have you had this debate with Hindu?
No, I've not. She's
cancelled me. Doesn't want anything to do with it.
I don't know her, so I cannot. So I don't know her.
But it full of lot of nonsense. But there's no opportunity to sit down and really debate these people.
So it scares me. Why? Because if we are going to fundamentally look at ourselves in these relativistic ways, then what are we going to do in our society? And इतना मर के आज 100 साल में, मुझे तो कोई शर्म, मैं कोई ऑफिशियल मेंबर नहीं हूँ आरएसएस का, ना मैं कोई स्पोक्स पर्सन हूँ आरएसएस का। आई एम अ सिंपथाइजर एंड एडमायरर ऑफ द आरएसएस, व्हाट दे हैव डन फॉर आवर सोसाइटी। 100 साल लगे इस प्रोजेक्ट को, हिंदुओं को यूनाइट करने को। मरमरा के हिंदू यूनाइट हुए हैं एक ऑब्जेक्टिव स्टैंडर्ड के बेस पे। ऑब्जेक्टिव स्टैंडर्ड क्या है कि हिंदुत्व है ऑब्जेक्टिव स्टैंडर्ड। उनका ऑब्जेक्टिव, आप उससे एग्री कर सकते हो और डिसएग्री कर, उन्होंने एक ऑब्जेक्टिव लाइन बनाई कि ये कास्ट बेस्ड डिस्क्रिमिनेशन और ये सब हम सपोर्ट नहीं करते हैं। आप वो ऑब्जेक्टिविटी की फंडामेंटल एपिस्टेमोलॉजी को ही तोड़ दोगे तो कल के आप घूम फिर के किधर भी जाके वहीं जाने वाले हो। आप वापस आपको वही करना है कि जी लालू प्रसाद जी एक कास्ट पार्टी बना रहे हैं, मुलायम सिंह जी दूसरी कास्ट पार्टी बना रहे हैं। द सक्सेस ऑफ द हिंदुत्व प्रोजेक्ट वाज दैट it broke caste-based parties in India. They exist, but they are not relevant. And it created a Hindu vote bank. Hindu, which has all kinds of religious identities in it. Even Muslims who identify as Hindus. I'm being very categorical here. Now, you flip this and you say, yeah, there is no objective truth. Why? Because problem ये होती है अगर आप objective standard से करते हो. What I liked about your book was, आपने not even once in the book did you say, did you deny problems in our society? In fact, not even once. बार आपने कहा कि नहीं हमारी सोसाइटी में प्रॉब्लम्स हैं.
And I have sympathy for them.
Yeah.
And I want to help them.
Yes.
But I want them to be scientific and logical, and I want them to be open to debate and discussion.
Yes.
And I don't want them to bring foreign breaking India danda on us.
Exactly.
We can solve the problem among ourselves.
Exactly.
With those three criteria, I'm very much interested in solving this problem.
Yeah, which is why I liked reading this, is because I did not see denialism or negationism. Like,
It's
India,
not a supremacist and chauvinistic. I'm not doing like that.
Yeah, and see, because India में कैसा होता है कि India में there is a left and what I call the non-left, the people who don't like the left. There is no right wing in India. They are all leftists in weird ways, but they don't say that. So India में दो kind of negationism है. एक the record of caste का थोड़ा बहुत negationism है और the record of Islam का negationism है. Everybody picks and chooses. Discrimination. Left बोलता है Islamic discrimination कुछ हुई नहीं इंडिया में. We were all holding hands and singing कुम्बाया. हम बल्ले बल्ले कर रहे थे, ये तो अंग्रेजों ने कर दिया. बाकी तो हम कुछ कर ही नहीं रहे थे. और सिमिलरली मेरे हिसाब से एक हिंदू साइड में एक थोड़ा सा डिनायलिज्म है ऑन द रिकॉर्ड ऑफ कास्ट इन इंडिया एंड डिस्क्रिमिनेशन, जो कि आप नहीं डिनाई करते. आप ये बुक में क्लियर बोलते हो भाई प्रॉब्लम हुई है हमारे यहाँ पे, वी हैव टू एक्नॉलेज इट. बट सोल्यूशन क्या है? सोल्यूशन उनसे नहीं लेना चाहिए, सोल्यूशन हमारा आना चाहिए. आई लव्ड इट कि आपने भक्ति मूवमेंट के बारे में बताया. इट वाज अ इंडिक सोल्यूशन.
It was nobody else came from anywhere to bring it to us.
यस, उन्होंने आइडेंटिफाई किया भाई प्रॉब्लम है, हम हमारी सोल्यूशन देते हैं. They did not, go outside, import a foreign religion and impose that foreign religion, whether the religion is, wokeism or old Christianity.
And I tell you, even Ambedkar was dead against Islam and Christianity.
And you quote him copiously in the book.
And I always keep showing it to the young day because वो Muslim bhai kar raha hai. So he says he's Ambedkar now, but he's actually completely contradicting Ambedkar. And Ambedkar, with all his degrees and diplomas, PhDs from Columbia University and in London and all that, went back to India. He didn't want anything to do. He had all kind of offers. He did not want anything to do to become a showcase for Columbia University or for London people to solve Indian problems. He said, "मैं India में जाऊँगा. I'm one of them. I am one of them. And we will solve problems from within." And so he was a freedom fighter. He was a nationalist. He called himself a nationalist. He voted in favor of Sanskrit as national language. So, इन लोगों को अम्बेडकर भी नहीं पूरी तरह से पता.
सर, अम्बेडकर का भी उसको बोलते हैं ना, अंग्रेजी में कोट माइनिंग होती है. जैसे सूट करता है वैसे अम्बेडकर को कोट करो. तो द लेफ्ट इन इंडिया एंड द लेफ्ट ओवर हियर, they will never quote Ambedkar and his book on Pakistan and Islam. They will never quote him. Because अगर उधर कोट कर दिया तो बैंड बच गई. क्योंकि अंबेडकर के व्यूज तो इतने ब्रूटल हैं, इतने ब्रूटल है. अंबेडकर ने तो जिसको बोला ना कि मिरर ही दिखा दिया उस सोसाइटी को. और जो एक ये जो अपोलोजिस्ट है साइड है, वो अंबेडकर के व्यूज ऑन हिंदुइज्म का भी कोट नहीं करती, क्योंकि उनको लगता है नहीं ये तो प्रॉब्लम. अच्छा, वहां पे बोल दे कि नहीं अंबेडकर के व्यूज ऑन हिंदुइज्म आर कॉलोनाइज्ड. अच्छा, इस्लाम में वो कॉलोनाइज नहीं है, यहाँ पे वो सडनली कॉलोनाइज्ड हो जाता है. तो मतलब everybody picks and chooses.
But I'll be honest, I also have disagreements with Ambedkar.
That's fine.
I discuss Ambedkar, his four big books he wrote.
Yeah.
One on Hinduism and caste, one on this Pakistan and Islam and things like that. He wrote, a communism के ऊपर भी लिखी, and one on Buddhism. So I disagree. I critique each of his books, where I agree, where I disagree. In fact, I really disagree with him on Buddhism because he's a Buddhist, but he's broken one of the principal tenets that makes Buddhism what it is.
Fourfold and eightfold. Four noble truths and eightfold paths.
Yeah, he wanted it to be a social theory, political theory, identity theory, but not a theory of your adhyatmic process of meditation and finding a nirvana or a higher state of consciousness.
Absolutely.
He was not into the meditation part at all, and that is what Buddha's quintessential contribution is to humanity. And there is a very interesting video of Suraj Jengde with a Buddhist monk.
You mentioned it.
वो बड़ा अच्छा उसका वीडियो में. By the way, all the evidence हमने डाउनलोड कर रखी है because these guys are already starting to delete. But they don't realize that for everything we've quoted, we've got it downloaded and made a cloud, put it on the cloud. All the videos that we've quoted, we've got a copy of them, and all the other sites that we've quoted, screenshots वगैरह हमारे पास हैं. So they cannot delete because we have it. So there is a video where Yengde is discussing with this monk in Southeast Asia, and he's trying to get support against upper caste Hindus as a part of the Dalit Buddhist kind of a thing, and that guy won't give him any such support. No such support. He goes around saying, tries to tell him that Dalits were the original Buddhists, and that guy says, "Can you show me any history?" He can't show him any historical record. Then that guy asks him, "What is your relationship with meditation?" He put him on the spot because he knows कि इसको कुछ नहीं आता. So he says ki I tried it once and it didn't work and I was very confused and I don't want it and I'm giving up and maybe I'll try again one day. So that guy tells me very clearly, then you're no Buddhist. I mean, you're just a fake Buddhist. So these guys are completely fake in their scholarship and they thrive because you can't argue with them on facts because they don't believe in facts. And if you talk too much to give them too many debates and arguments, they will cancel you. And they have what's going for them is that they've captured these places like Harvard with very lot of power, lot of prestige, brand value. They've captured those places, and therefore, they are the ones who get to decide. आपको cancel करेंगे, उसको cancel नहीं करेंगे, and that's how life is. And they have the clout in the political circles all over the world. They have the clout in media circles all over the world, think tanks all over the world. So that's the predicament that we are bringing out in this book.
Yeah, I think for me personally, मैं ये चीज़ें पढ़ रहा था खुद parallelly, मगर मैं लिखने वालों में से नहीं हूँ. So personally, I'm very glad आपने ये किताब लिख दी कि किसी को तो लिखनी ही चाहिए थी, क्योंकि बेसिकली पुराना उनका रिलीजन खत्म हो गया इन सोसाइटीज का. इन्होंने उनका डिसीजन था, इन्होंने चर्च को गिराया, क्यों गिराया वो उनकी प्रॉब्लम है, मेरी प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. ह्यूमन कंडीशन ऐसी है. इट्स फनी कमिंग फ्रॉम अ डिसबिलीवर लाइक मी, मगर इट इज व्हाट इट इज. यू यर्न फॉर रिलीजियस स्टेबिलिटी. ये नया रिलीजन आ गया इनका. और आयरॉनिकली जैसा आपने कहा है बुक में करेक्ट है. मैंने भी ये 4 साल पहले एक छोटा सा ऑपेड लिखा था इसके ऊपर कि सोशल जस्टिस, रिलीजन एंड क्रिश्चियनिटी की ये सिमिलैरिटीज है. मैंने 4 साल पहले एक छोटा सा ऐसे लिखा था इसके ऊपर, और लिटरली आपने तो काफी डिटेल में लिखा है इसके ऊपर. तो जो हो रहा है. बट आई पर्सनली इनफैक्ट आई वांट टू थैंक यू फॉर राइटिंग दिस बुक. एंड वन लास्ट क्वेश्चन बिफोर वी रैप इट अप. अभी इसके बाद क्या है आपका प्रोजेक्ट?
So first of all, within the scope of this book, and then I'll tell you beyond this book. Within the scope of this book, we are producing small books with specific topics from the book to popularize, paperback 100-page books. That will take 6 months to produce. Another project is to do a Hindi translation of this, because I think Hindi mein bahut chalegi baat. Because these forces, international forces, Hindi wale, they have no idea kya ho raha hai. Those who are English readers at least have some ideas. Maybe they have not crystallized it so clearly, but they have some ideas. So that's another project. And another thing I'm going to do within the scope of this book is conduct training workshops for social media influencers. So what we're going to do is go to Mumbai, we're going to go to Delhi, we're going to go to Chennai. Each place we will organize 50 or 100 or whatever number of social media influencers. Bring them and teach them this as a workshop with slides, with videos, and do Q&As. We are trying to tutor these people who may not read a large book, how you can incorporate these thoughts in their own content.
Yes.
But in a respectful way, referencing us, not trying to bypass us. Because the problem I've had is that if we don't go bring it down to a level where we can teach people how they can use it, they do want to use it. They're not scholars. They don't have the content. They want to use it. So then they all try to show that it's their own content, which I think is not fair. I mean, I want to, in fact, ask you that. What do you think about that syndrome that I face? That I invest so much in this research, and I don't want anybody's money and all that stuff. But what I want is that we should create a lineage of scholarship where you refer to previous people. This is a tradition in the West. It's a tradition in India also. You refer to past people that you are utilizing. So what we are going to do is, to encourage that, we are going to bring these people in major cities and conduct workshops and teach them how they can utilize the main ideas. What are the main ideas in this book? How they can utilize these ideas for their own videos, in their own content, in their own commentary, but in a way that they also refer to us. So these are some of the projects within the scope of this book.
That's great.
What is your thought on this? That we train the social media influencers about all our knowledge, because I'm going to produce 2 books a year, and I'm doing my job. मेरा तो वो काम है. They are doing their job. Your job is to spread influence and with your own interpretations. So how do we work together? How do we work together where we constantly flow more ideas and knowledge to them, which is highly researched with references, which is bulletproof logic. Nobody has ever taken my book apart and been able to debunk it. They attack me personally. People attack me personally and insult me and all that. That doesn't matter. But none of my books they've been able to debunk. So I'm giving rock solid research to our community, and they want to take it forward in their own name. They should. But we can also work together and support each other. That's my challenge.
Yeah, personally, अभी आप तो जानते हो मैं तो काफी सालों से कर रहा हूँ. I think I have personally used concepts of being different, and I think सबसे ज़्यादा तो मैंने ही, मैं पता नहीं बड़ा नहीं, मुझे लगता है उस बुक को सबसे ज़्यादा मैंने ही यूज़ किया होगा.
Yes.
सबसे ज़्यादा
You popularized it.
मैंने यूज़ किया था, मैंने उसके कॉन्सेप्ट्स को यूज़ किया. इनफैक्ट मैंने एक बार एक बंदे ने कल्चरल अप्रोप्रिएशन, हाउ कल्चरल अप्रोप्रिएशन इज बैड के ऊपर एक आर्टिकल लिखा था. मैंने बोला आई एग्री विथ यू, कल्चरल अप्रोप्रिएशन एज अ कॉन्सेप्ट इज सिली. मैंने बोला बट हैव यू हर्ड ऑफ कल्चरल डाइजेशन? तो बोलता व्हाट इज कल्चरल डाइजेशन? तो मैंने उसको बोला था देयर इज दिस नॉर्थ अमेरिकन स्कॉलर ऑफ इंडियन ओरिजिन. मैं हमेशा बोलता हूँ आप हो नॉर्थ अमेरिका में रहने वाले तो नॉर्थ अमेरिकन ही होना चाहिए ना. तो मैंने उसको बोला ये डाइजेशन ये होती है. तो उसने बोला दिस इज इंटरेस्टिंग. तो एक गोरा पीएचडी था बेसिकली, उसको मैंने बोला था, एक पीएचडी था. तो उसने पढ़ा, बोला हाँ दिस इज इंटरेस्टिंग. फिर उसने कुछ क्वेश्चंस पूछे तो मैंने उसके आंसर दिए मेरे हिसाब से. मैंने कहा सो यू शुड रीड दिस बुक. मैंने इनफैक्ट आपकी बुक काफी लोगों को गिफ्ट भी की थी कि मैंने बोला ये बुक पढ़ो.
You used to do quite a lot of evangelism for my books.
Yeah, and
between 2010 and 15.
Yeah, and I've done book reading sessions also. As far as the citation culture, I don't know what the solution is. I think it's an inner personality thing. Sometimes people think that by showing that they are spreading somebody else's idea, they think people may not take them seriously. First of all, there's no such thing in my view. Not everybody can think of everything. I'm sure people can think of original things, but if you are learning something, it is always nice to account. A few days ago, I had in fact tweeted out Patrick Olivelle ki Manusmriti ki translation mein. He shows, he created a table. Kudos to that guy. I may not agree with many things he says in his introduction, but kudos to that guy. He showed how many times the Manusmriti is cited, the Yajnavalkya Smriti is cited, the Parashara Smriti is cited in other books. So the culture of citation is very ancient.
Yeah. Oh no, the whole idea of when you study Vedant, Advait Vedant, it all goes through commentary. Shankara said this, then the commentary on him was this, then the commentary on the commentary was this, and the commentary on the commentary on the commentary was this.
Yeah.
That is how they teach you. Yeah. Right, today they teach you that. So that idea of referring to commentary and saying that I'm referring to person A's commentary who was commenting on B, who was commenting on C, bringing that whole lineage is very important part of our tradition.
Yeah.
And that is how paramparas are built, that is how schools of thought are built. If you don't have that, then each generation is starting from scratch with no continuity from the past. So we need some continuity from the past, because then we can build, each generation can build on top of the others.
Yeah, and not only that, when you cite, I think you're honoring work.
And you're creating, yes, it's an ecosystem, and you have to honor work to encourage more people to do that. Because in a place where, for instance, if you look at commercial, corporate, intellectual property, in India there was no intellectual property rights, and so nobody did research. They said come copy karenge because there's no value, there's no such thing as intellectual property jiski koi log respect karenge. So once you create intellectual property laws which say that investing billions of dollars in creating intellectual property has value, because then you will be having an asset. It's like property, like having real estate. This is your property. So creating that has helped build the culture of research. And so it was in our tradition, and it is now also in the law. Yeah.
Sir, आप हमारी दवाई की इंडस्ट्री देखो ना, हम सिर्फ जेनेरिक ड्रग्स ही बनाते हैं ना.
Because it's not worth it, because nobody expects that.
Yeah. तो वही
वो कह रहे हैं हम कॉपी कर लेंगे.
वही basically हमारे यहाँ ये problem है. I mean, at least what I do is every month I target to कभी एक करता हूँ, कभी 4 monologues करता हूँ. So I have this very standard habit. I have my citations if I am citing, and whenever I just share the screen, तो बंदे को पता ही चल जाता है यहाँ से स्क्रीन शेयर कर रहा हूँ, मैं डायरेक्ट उसको रीड करता हूँ. But I don't know why we don't do it. It is not just with you. I just think it's a habit in our culture. People don't like to cite, but it is changing. I think it is slowly changing with time, with new and better scholars coming up. I think I see positive signs over here, and I'm personally very hopeful. And as far as the workshops are concerned, I think they will work. They will help. people a lot, because the one thing people lack on what I call loosely our side. What is our side? Somebody will ask. Well, the people who are not on the left. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. Is they don't understand the language of discourse. There is a way to make a point. मतलब क्या हो गया कि इंडियन डिस्कोर्स इज रिड्यूस टू रोज टीवी पे जाना, कोई चप्पल मार रहा है, कोई जुत्ती मार रहा है, कोई कुर्सी फेंक रहा है. आई थिंक वी हैव बिकम हेकलर्स.
Right.
Somehow people think heckling is supposed to be something amazing.
It's emotions out of control.
Yeah, and I honestly, personally, I could care less. For me, it has zero impact. Zero. Heckling has zero impact. You might have 10 million subscribers on YouTube and heckle people on a daily basis. You can't influence one policy. That person might be 500 subscribers, but that person knows how to speak, knows how to push the buttons, and that person will have a much larger impact than you on societal discourse. So, unfortunately, क्या हो रहा है कि I think personally, ये मेरा assessment है. It has got to do with our societal monetary status. जब आप US में क्या होता है सर, आप बच्चे हो गए ना, आप रिस्क ले सकते हो क्योंकि मॉनेटरी बैकिंग होती है. एक वो कल्चर ऑफ इनोवेशन है यहाँ पे. हमारे वहाँ क्या होता है, एटलीस्ट बच्चे को डर ही लगा रहता है मैं करियर कैसे बनाऊंगा. आज के बच्चे फिर भी रिस्क टेकर्स हैं. आप मेरे को ले लो ना, मैं 20 साल की उम्र में कभी पॉडकास्ट नहीं चालू करता. मेरे में हिम्मत नहीं थी, सोचने की तो कैपेसिटी थी नहीं थी, हिम्मत भी नहीं थी. कल्चर ने वो हिम्मत नहीं दी. मुझे भी अपने आप को फाइनेंशियली स्टेबल करना पड़ा पहले, उसके बाद ये साइड प्रोजेक्ट चालू करना पड़ा, फिर उस साइड प्रोजेक्ट को एस्टैब्लिश करना पड़ा. एस्टैब्लिश करने के बाद फिर लगा तो फिर हाँ मम्मी डैडी ने बोला हाँ ठीक है पुत्र कर ले. मैं आपको सच कह रहा हूं, जो कड़वी सच्चाई है. आई थिंक अ लॉट ऑफ द प्रॉब्लम्स दैट यू हैव डिस्कस्ड stem from our economic reality. I think when we become a $10 trillion economy with tons of money, वो confidence आ जाएगा. I always give the example of BCCI, the Board for Cricket Control of India, and how our boys are now in cricket. वो जो swagger है, वो जो confidence है, it started from Ganguly. Ganguly के बाद कुंबले, धोनी, कोहली और अभी रोहित. वो confidence build हो रहा है. वो BCCI में क्यों build हो रहा है? वहाँ पे monetary might है कि आज आपको मालूम है रणजी लेवल के भी प्लेयर को टेंशन मिलने वाली है. तो वो जो है ना, वो माइंड फ्री रख के खेलता है बच्चा कि अगर मैंने अपने आप को रणजी में एस्टैब्लिश किया ना, मेरी एज अ रणजी प्लेयर भी लाइफ सेट है क्योंकि मैं रणजी के बाद भी मुझे पेंशन मिलने वाली है बीसीसीआई से. वो जो एक लेवल ऑफ कॉन्फिडेंस है ना, वो बीसीसीआई लेवल ऑफ कॉन्फिडेंस, वो अमेरिका में पूरा अमेरिका बीसीसीआई है बेसिकली. मैं नहीं बोल रहा हूँ उधर गरीब नहीं है, नहीं, मगर मैं एक एनालॉजी के तौर पर बता रहा हूँ. हमारे देश में वो नहीं है. आज भी हम लोग गरीब हैं, और वो गरीबी में क्या होता है, हर आदमी शॉर्टकट मारता है. और शॉर्टकट मारता है ना तो साइट करना, किसी को एक्नॉलेज करना, दैट कम्स फ्रॉम अ प्लेस ऑफ मेंटल सिक्योरिटी.
But do you also think it's ego, shortcut, and lack of character? It's like a chori, it's jugaad. Another way to look at it is that we are a jugaad people, so therefore jugaad for knowledge is कि मैं यहाँ से वहाँ से लेके करा दूँगा, मेरा काम चले जाएगा. It's like, if you think about it, a lot of the social media influencers are jugaadus. And you can think of it like that also. But you know, we are in Canada, so I want to tell you, there is a Ragini Sharma, one of the best, closest old friends of mine on this journey, and a great supporter of all this, who has been sticking her neck out, fighting for me against people who trying to plagiarize and try to. You see, the worst part of a plagiarizer is, it's one thing to just borrow ideas quietly and all that. But they feel that they have to hate you to prove that you are no good, because then their plagiarized version will get ahead. That is the problem. So they feel they have to knock you down. They have to actually not only take your ideas, but give all the kind of logic they can come up with, that you are no good and theirs is the original idea. So that negativity is an issue that she has picked up and talked to some people quite courageously. And so I do want to say that we have now, in her own case, she did her PhD in the University of Toronto, and the book, her whole thesis is on the book being different, and she's quoted the book passages, maybe 50, 70, 80 times. All the time she's quoted it, and she evaluated this and critiqued it against the opposing point of view, did a comparison between the two. So, you know, you can make a PhD out of it. It's not like quoting others and acknowledging them is going to ruin your reputation. You can actually use it and say that I'm building on top of it, and she's done a lot of original work in that area. So I'm giving that as an example, as a counter example to the kind of people who are a problem in terms of not helping us build an ecosystem, because at the end of the day, we are all on the same side and we ought to build an ecosystem. And too much jugaad and selfishness, how do I personally get ahead, is not good for the collective, for all of us together.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I mean, it is what it is.
It is what it is. It is what it is.
We live in this world. But sir, congratulations on this book, and I'm glad to meet you. बड़े सालों के बाद मिला मैं आपको. Book आपकी पढ़ रहा था और मिल नहीं पा रहे थे हम लोग.
I'm back in Mumbai in February.
फिर मिलेंगे पक्का मिलेंगे. And I'm really happy. आप it's admirable कि आप इतना लिखते हो. मैं इतना लिख नहीं पाता, पढ़ पाता हूँ.
I have 20 more books to publish.
Wow.
And the research is done. The first draft is done. So after the first draft is done, it's not like it's ready to go to press. A lot of hard work. It's like the architect has built all this building, everything is ready, but now the finishing takes a long time, So the finishing consists of doing all the fact checking. I get 2-3 rounds of fact checking. This requires going to libraries here and there. I want all the facts that have been checked to be downloaded and saved properly for future. I want a bibliography done. All the diagrams, which are quick diagrams that I do a lot of flow charts and tables, but somebody has to make them aesthetically nice. Cover design has to be done. Then it has to go through proofreading and copy editing, 3-4 rounds of copy editing. So all this can take 9 months to a year after the first draft is done. And that's very intensive work for me. So I have 20 books that are ready for that. I'm going to release 2-3 a year.
Wow.
New ones on different topics.
Great.
One of them is called The Theory of Digestion, because this is now multi-volume. It's a multi-volume work on the theory of digestion with so many examples. And the theory itself is a volume, and then the examples are different volumes.
I'm glad to hear that, and I wish you all the best. और जब बुक आएगी मैं फिर पढ़ लूँगा, फिर आपसे बात होगी फिर से.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's an absolute pleasure. So sir, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. You've come a long way since we worked together. And you were one of the young guys helping me carrying books, and you and Ganesh and all.
Yeah.
I would tell Ganesh, my back doesn't allow me. He said, I'm going to call Kushal. He'll pick up those 20 boxes and put in there. And also 1 or 2 times like at TIS. Remember that event at TIS?
वो सर बाहर वो book जलाने की बात कर रहे थे, मैं खड़ा था उधर.
So you were the tough guy protecting me. I mean, you were my bodyguard. I mean, I'm telling you, I have to tell this to people that he was my bodyguard. He would be the one selling my books like better than anybody else could. And looking after me in terms of health when I got in trouble. And also my bodyguard with the really aggressive type people. See, I'm not used to that. I never faced that kind of thing.
This was crazy.
But that we went to the Tata Institute of Social Sciences, and it was a very difficult that Aditya Agarwal got nervous. Ghabra gaya wo. People were really into this gunda mood there. And you played a role to protect us and make sure that our video got out, because the video, they wanted to capture the video, also take the memory card.
Yeah, मुझे आज तक नहीं भूलेगा. वो कुछ एक लड़का था और 2 लड़कियां थी, वो आके बोलते हैं let us burn all these books. मैंने बोला 1 मिनट, मतलब the cost of every book, तभी मुझे याद है कुछ 320 रुपए की Being Different का प्राइस था मुझे एग्जैक्ट वेगी यार. मतलब इतनी किताबें हैं, 320 रुपए है, ये वाली बुक 400 रुपए की है, इतना होता है, ये पैसे दे दो, बाद में सर पे मारो, जो करना है करो, मेरे को तो पैसे से मतलब है. तो वो लोग मुझे देख रहे हैं, ये क्या आदमी है, बोल रहा खरीद लो, जो करना है करो. मैं तो उनको बोलते हैं बुक खरीद, उसके बाद अपना सर पे मार, उसको जो करना है कर. सानू की मैं ना भाई मेरा काम है ये बुक बेचना, तेरे को मैं हाथ नहीं लगाने दूंगा जब तक तू उसको खरीदेगा नहीं. तू खरीद रहे उसके बाद तेरे को अपना सर मार रहा है उस पे मार. तो yeah, they just walked away after that. But no, I'm really glad, and I mean this with all seriousness. I mean, I've shared my disagreements with you also on many times on email also, but I will always say this, and I say this with all seriousness to everyone. If you know me personally, you know I have recommended Being Different to you. If you know me personally, and maybe you can write to Rajiv ji also कि every time I meet someone, they ask me कि कौन सी book पढ़नी चाहिए. मैंने बोला उस बंदे की हर बुक पढ़ो, मैं ये नहीं बोल रहा हूँ नहीं पढ़ो, मगर Being Different पक्का पढ़ना. Because, and I mean this with all seriousness, that big book genuinely rewired me. I discovered my own disbelief. मैं चारवाक आपकी बुक पढ़ने के बाद बना. नहीं तो पहले मैं एथियस्ट था, फिर मैं चारवाक बना, और मैंने रियलाइज किया कि मुझे हमेशा लगता था कि मैं गुस्से में नहीं हूँ. हिचिंस गुस्से में है, डॉकिंस गुस्से में है, मैं गुस्से में नहीं हूँ. मेरी माँ ने कभी नहीं मुझे बोला कि अरे तू मानता नहीं है. मेरी माँ को कुछ फर्क ही नहीं पड़ता था, क्योंकि मैं तो मंदिर भी चले जाता था, मैं तो दिवाली की पूजा भी कर लेता हूँ, आज भी करता हूँ. नराते होते मैं वेजिटेरियन भी बन जाता हूँ.
मुझे कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ता, मगर मेरा डिसबिलीफ है। तो वो जो मेरी डिस्कवरी को शब्द जो दिए थे ना, वो आपकी किताब ने दिए थे, एंड फॉर दैट आई विल बी always grateful to you. I'll eternally be grateful to that book. इसलिए I have a very soft corner for that book. मैंने कुछ दिन पहले भी आपकी वो बुक गिफ्ट की है किसी को, मैं हमेशा करता रहता हूँ। अभी मैं उल्टा करता हूँ, अभी मैं किंडल से कॉपी भेज देता हूँ किसी को, कि मैंने अपना ईमेल आईडी दिया, अगर किंडल है मैं किंडल पे भेजता हूँ। So guys, we'll wrap today's discussion up. First of all, in the description of the podcast, you will find all the links, whether it's to Rajiv Ji's Twitter handle, Infinity Foundation. You can also donate and contribute to the Infinity Foundation. Also to the links to not just buy Snakes in the Ganga, to buy all his books. Everything will be there in the description of the podcast. All the social media handles will be there. I urge all of you, go and follow him. Look, you can disagree with him, you can agree with him, but I can tell you, you cannot ignore Rajiv Malhotra. That I can guarantee you. You cannot ignore Rajiv Malhotra. And I think you should read him. And the one thing I can assure you that Rajiv Malhotra never shies away from is a good debate. If you don't believe me, check out his discussion with a Columbia professor a few years ago, I remember. So buy the book, do the needful, and if you like what I'm doing over here, please subscribe to the Cārvāka podcast YouTube channel, like the video. If you want to support me, you can become a member on YouTube or Patreon or whatever, you know the drill. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, namaste, take care, bye-bye.